Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. We're kicking off a brand new week. It's a shortened week for me as I'll be making my way to Denver, Colorado for the MUFON Symposium on Thursday and arriving in Denver Friday morning. But we're going to have a great week for you lined up tonight. First off, Dr. Simeon Hein is here tonight talking about all things weird and strange. Dirty Filth will be here for the cartoons. And we're going to get going here momentarily. Let's say hello to everyone in the chat room tonight. Jeffrey DeRuin in the gold medal position. Race Fan taking home a rare silver. Roy Boy with the bronze. John Hinoyosa, how you doing? Luscious Jules is here. She'll be signing autographs after the show. Light up to the right of the studio. To the right of the studio. Awesome Man Palmer is here. Les Paul Holland strumming away in Australia. Hi, Awesome Man B. How are you? Mr. Lurks a lot. Evan Walters. The gorgeous Kathy Evans. Lovely Lisa Compton. Good to have you all here. D. Cohen, Toe Tag. How you doing, guys? Thank you for joining us. Hello there, Tombstone. Hope you had a great 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to all of our American listeners. Remember, you're all treasonists. You are all treasonists, each and every one of you. Yes. Yes, you are, and we love you for it. All right, and let's see. Continue on here with the roll call, and there is Daniel. How you doing, man? Raven is Ryan, not Ravenous Ryan, as Thomas Fessler would say. And I know you're listening, Thomas, but thank you. I had a good laugh with that one earlier. Okay, moving on. Latro, how you doing? Nice to have you back. Renard the Fox, good to see you here. And where are we here? Human Carl's here. Human Carl, don't mix him up with Alien Carl. He don't like that. Human Carl is one of the great veterans who listens to this show. Thank you for your service, Human Carl. We really do appreciate it. Gorgeous Kathy Hughes, how you doing? Nice to see you. Stephen Edmond, good to have you here. Well, look at that. Would you look at that? Thomas Fessler from Disclosure Tonight, kicking off the Super Chat. Remember, you can listen to Disclosure Tonight on YouTube right before Spaced Out Radio each night of the week, except Thursdays. For some reason, he takes Thursdays off. I don't get why, but thank you, Thomas. Really appreciate you, brother. Millennium, nice to see you here. 405er, nice to have you back. Oh, there he is, ladies and gentlemen. It's Doug Shelby. The Doug Shelby has arrived on the 4th of July. Felipe, hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Nice to have you both here. So we continue on with the roll call. Sweet Donna C. Looking good tonight. Downshift, Alien Critter, Be More Dan. Nice to have you all here. Bombshell Bomber, Cat Chaser. You're looking awesome tonight. Thank you for joining us as we continue on. There's Bobbert and Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio. If you haven't subscribed to that channel yet, what are you thinking? Get over there and hit that red button. The gorgeous Dizzy Me. Holly's looking gorgeous as well. And Michael Elwell, welcome to SOR Chat. Thank you for joining us. Look by your picture. Looks like you got a pretty satisfying beard going on there and hair combination. Look at that. That's what we like around here. Moving on, Nicholas Shaughnessy, thank you for joining us. The gorgeous Jen A., good to have you here. And Simon in Australia, thanks for coming on in. Oob to Joe's Maine, you've got Lola. Yeah, you do. Where's my Lola pick for today? Don't piss me off, otherwise I'm not doing the show. You know how I love that puppy. All right, moving on here, everyone. As we continue on with roll call, better start the radio side, because that's kind of important. It's the gorgeous and amazing Heather McIntyre. There she is, right there. Boom. Tom King, how's the hair, buddy? Give us a hair update if you don't mind. We'd appreciate it. George Hernandez, thanks for joining us. And who else is joining us here? Well, let's take a look here as we are running out of time. Kronos. And there's who else is here? Kronos and the gorgeous D. Swagger. Good morning, Chris Mo in Austria. Good to have you here. And I think we're almost caught up. I think we are. Yeah. Got them. Yeah, there's Bobbert and Jenna and Tombstone. I think we're caught up. I really do. I really do believe it. Phil Minervino's snuck on in, and Dirty Filth as well. Remember, the Super Chat is open. It's a great way to support what we do. Be like Thomas. Help us on out. And our store is open on our website, spacedoutradio.com. Get your swag today. Here we go. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. We got a great show for you tonight. Dr. Simeon Hein will be here momentarily talking all things strange and weird. In hour number 3, we may go a little bit longer with Dr. Hein, depending on if he's tired or not. We're going to go to the swamp dwellers here. There is no UFO report because all of our guys are busy, but we may get into a discussion about aliens. Shirky Poo has the news. Dr. Simeon Hein received his degree in sociology from Washington State University in 1992. His main areas of interest include nonlinear research methods, complexity theory, and technology and society. His first learned in remote viewing in 1996 and has also pursued crop circle research since then. He teaches resident viewing at Mount Baldy Institute down in Boulder, Colorado. He's been doing that since 1997. He's got a brand new book out. It just came on the market 2 days ago called Dark Matter Monsters. We highly suggest you head on over and find that book on Amazon and wherever else it could be. But we are in for one heck of a show tonight. Where it goes with Dr. Hein, you never know. I'm not even scripting this one because it's just going to be way too awesome. Dr. Simeon Hein, it's been a while since you've been on Spaced Out Radio, but hot darn, we're glad to have you back, my man. How are you?
Hey, guys. And hey, Dave. Thanks for having me here tonight. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. You know, it's a great way to kick off the week. I am sad, though, that later this week I'll be in your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And you're going to be up in Washington State, I believe.
Yeah.
We're going to be crossing paths somewhere in the sky over Oregon or Nevada or someplace like that. But, you know, it's so good to have you back on the show.
Yeah.
Great. And I really want to say thank you to our good friend Jules in the chat room on YouTube.
Go Jules.
Because she is such a huge fan of yours, and she's always hammering us. When's Simeon coming back on? When's he coming back on? And you know what? We deserve that. We got to have you on more often.
Thank you. I met Jules in an RV class that I taught in North Idaho, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I think it was 2018. Jules, if I'm not mistaken, she was there and she did some great viewing work, and we've stayed in touch ever since.
Well, it's good to have you back here. And you're very diverse because you have an educational studious background. You are a doctor of sociology. You're somebody who comes from a real nuts and bolts type of atmosphere. What attracts you to the woo so much over the last near 30 years here?
Yeah, it's a good question, Dave. I used to be a statistics teacher at WSU in Pullman, Washington. I was an assistant professor there. And a couple of years after getting my degree, graduate school, being assistant professor, I just came across remote viewing. It wasn't something I would have thought was true if I hadn't tried it myself, like a lot of people. And I think what it is, I started looking into these topics and I could immediately see that we weren't getting the full picture from the rest of scientists, professionals. I was investigating these topics just as an academic, something like RV. I could see from the class I took in 1996 at the Farsight Institute, there was something really going on here. There was like a subterranean channel of information that I never knew about. You couldn't even see how it was happening. Nonetheless, you were getting very accurate results describing, pictures and things you wouldn't see for another half hour. But when I started looking into it, I saw we're not really getting accurate reporting about this. There's almost like a type of suppression going on because it's sort of outside mainstream science. I've been a subscriber to Science magazine since like late 80s when my graduate committee said, you ought to have a subscription to Science. There's good stuff about ecology and sociology there. But I didn't see anything in Science magazine about it, Dave. And the other topics, there were people who would come to these RV classes after I became an instructor who had stories to tell. And I guess they felt like I wouldn't judge them. Maybe I was crazy enough to listen to them. Former astronauts, people that had worked with NASA. And I started hearing these stories about what was on the moon, secret space forces, reverse engineered craft from extraterrestrials. And I started saying, well, wait a minute. These are very credible people. These are certified professionals. They're telling me this, a couple other people around, and they're not going public. I mean, is this really true? And you start digging. And the more you dig, the more you see, wow, what else is there that we haven't been told about? You start looking into crop circles because, it's one of the RV targets. So you go over there, get your feedback. Next thing you know, your camera's going on the fritz. Your compass is spinning around. I've seen these things for myself. So it's one topic leads to the next. And if you have sort of this hunger for the truth, you don't want to hear what other people said. You really want to see it for yourself. You want to read about it. You want to go there. And you realize, well, wait a minute. How come this isn't in the news? How come it's not in Science magazine? Oh, it's not a news. What's going on here? And that's how it starts. What is going on here? And why don't we have more information about these very credible and important topics? That's it.
I have to hit you up on this because my pet peeve over the last month has been NASA. Actually, probably the last 6 months has been NASA. More recently, I've been very angry with them because I think it's absolutely unprofessional. And if you want to call it disgusting or whatever adjective you want to use, that they are pulling the wool over the public's eyes saying, hey, we're now getting into this UFO stuff.
Yeah.
And, we're pretty interested. We didn't know any of this was going on. And yet, like you have said, and there's so much proof out there that NASA astronauts have seen things. When are you as upset about me with Bill Nelson, the head? Don't you just want to scream at him through the television and say, open up your closet, open up your filing cabinets and tell us what is there. Don't treat us like we're stupid.
No, it's true, Dave. When I was working on Black Swan Ghosts, a book I wrote about all my contact with these witnesses, starting with the astronauts that I met in the RV class, the shuttle astronauts. I interviewed a guy named Dr. Richard Hoover, who was one of the top astrobiologists in the world. Hundreds of peer-reviewed papers, patents. He was an expert in extremophiles. These life forms that can live in really hot volcanic vents and nuclear power plants and all this, right? Cold Arctic he told me at a UFO conference, it was the opening, the International UFO Congress, when it had moved outside of Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, Arizona. We spent a couple days together. His story was amazing. He said that on many carbonaceous meteorites, you find extraterrestrial fossils.
No.
Things that if you found them on Earth, you would say, this is a diatom, this is a single-celled organism, it's a fossil, no doubt about it, 100%. And yet you find them in fossils from meteorites that have fallen to Earth a long time ago. And he told me that NASA told him not to talk about it. They said, please do not go to conferences and talk about all this because it'll upset the American public. They're not ready for this. And he eventually quit working for NASA because he said, I'm not going to be muzzled by some bureaucratic organization. These are extraterrestrial fossils, no doubt about it. I said, Richard, are you saying that life is all over the universe? That's why we see it in, objects that come into our atmosphere, enter the soul. He said, yeah, it's all over the place. And a lot of it has the same structure that you would see on Earth, at least some of the things that we find in these meteorites. So this is someone I saw. I'm not surprised because when I asked him, well, what are they doing? He said, there's a timetable. They have a timetable for releasing this information. And what they're telling me is I'm going ahead of their timetable, so I'm quitting. But it's really astounding. I mean, he showed us the photos of these fossils, and he said, no, life is all over the universe. We're just one planet of many planets with life on it.
Yeah, it just absolutely stuns me because I know there's answers out there. I've talked to people much like you have who know that there's answers out there. They've seen the true videos. They've seen the true photographs. They've heard the true communications. And they are just so handcuffed that when you get threatened not only with your job, but jail time and your family's careers, and you've signed off on all of this through non-disclosure agreements, it's hard for Jill and Joe public like you and me to understand how locked down these people are. I mean, we always hear the term prison planet.
Right.
But that's exactly what a lot of these people live in. Whether it's Lou Elizondo, whether it's your guy, whether it's people who come on this show who have worked for the CIA or the DIA or NRO or whoever it may be.
Absolutely right. These large organizations, they can only go so fast to say what they want to tell us. And there's like a speed limit based on their degree of bureaucracy, I guess. I'm speaking as a sociologist here. And they have this message, like they have this agenda, and they don't want to go ahead of that because they're all afraid of reprisals. Just like we heard from the Navy pilots, witnesses to UAP, UFOs, that if they break rank, there's going to be consequences on your career and you're going to pay for it. And you do have brave people like Lou and like Dr. Richard Hoover who say, I don't care. I'm going to tell the truth to the public. Fire me. And they do get fired. But, I think for the vast majority of people, if you've put years of your life into an organization, you're thinking, benefits, career, you don't want to jeopardize it. So my feeling is that there are thousands and thousands of witnesses out there to all these phenomena that you cover on this show and all the other great podcasts out there, waiting for their day to come forward when whoever says it's okay, not just the Navy pilots, everyone else who's seen this, that these organizations say we're not going to, hurt you for telling the truth. And that's what we're up against. I know I've talked to people who've never wanted to go public, who I haven't mentioned in my books because they just felt the consequences were too severe. Yep.
At some point, though, the bubble has to burst. Many are saying that we're at the closest that bubble is to bursting right now. And, Thomas Fessler did a great job earlier on Disclosure Tonight talking about Sean Cahill, who was on that UFO podcast, where he was asked a question, how long until we get into the talk of aliens? And he said, basically said, we're within minutes of that conversation
Yeah.
coming out. And I still don't know if the public is ready. I don't believe that they are. I will be blunt. I'm on record saying I don't believe the public is ready for that conversation at all. You may be, Dr. Hein. I may be, as a host and an experiencer. Our audience may be ready, but there's still, a few billion people left on this planet that want nothing to do with extraterrestrial contact or contact from elsewhere. So, I will phrase the question like this to you. What is disclosure? What does that mean?
In terms of people being ready, no one's ever ready for reality. We're always living in a sort of social consensus bubble that's about 50 or 100 years out of date. Dave, I don't think it's ever been different throughout human history. If we had Copernicus here, if we had Galileo, Giordano Bruno, Enrico Fermi, they wouldn't even publish his paper on neutrinos. They just said, "Oh, this is too weird." Nature magazine, this is not credible. It's people won't believe it. I think we've always been in that situation. But as Hal Puthoff said to us at one of these IRVA SSE meetings in 2018, it's a Sputnik moment. It's almost like if you go too far, putting your head in the sand, you're going to be out of touch with reality, and you're going to start, devolving. You're going to be less adapted to reality, to our environment. So there's always this trade-off between slowing down and feeling comfortable as a society, but then all of a sudden you're not living in reality. There's like this, what they call it cognitive dissonance. It grows and it grows. And that's the situation we're in right now, where you have more witnesses coming forward. And if you have enough of these people come forward at once, there's going to be like a sonic boom of truth hitting our society. Do you want to release the information in a way that's a little more gradual, or do you want the sonic boom 5 or 10 years from now where it all hits at once, and with all the information technology, it would all come out in one day? So to answer your question directly, I've always thought of disclosure as a two-part process. It's not just the government telling us what it knows, or various individuals, or people who've handled the extraterrestrial wreckage. I've talked to these people too. And it's not just the external information, Dave. I think it's something to do with our sense of who we are, how we've grown up, and who we think we are based on what our parents have told us, teachers, and so forth. And it's going to be a bit of a shock to realize that that was a kindergarten story. There's lots of other folks around from other places. They're here right now, but it's an inner level of willingness to look at the truth. So I think, Dave, it's a two-part thing. It's having the external information. It's having credible news on the outside and witnesses coming forward and hearings and all that. That's all good. But on the inside, there's almost like a resonant challenge to your sense of self-identity and your way you perceive reality, right? So that's like an inner, and that's why I think RV helps with that, but other practices can help too. So I think it's a two-part process. There's an external side and an internal side.
We got about 5.5 minutes before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Simeon Hein is with us tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I want to ask you this, because I asked Lou Elizondo this the last time we had him on, and I thought it made a lot of sense because we had mentioned it on the program before. I don't think a lot of us, myself included, realize the dynamics that any sort of extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial disclosure will have on society. We forget how it's going to affect the military-industrial complex. We don't understand how it's going to affect the markets. How is it going to affect gasoline, food, the economy, religion? And that's just the main topics that we're hitting. How is it going to affect hospitals? How is it going to affect everything that goes along with life in general? As a sociologist, as you look at everything and look at society in general, the way the world is so ugly right now, is this really what we need? Is this something that should be happening?
Mm-hmm. I think so. You have that Reagan clip right at the beginning of the show every time. And what did Reagan say? How would we come together if we found out there was a third party out there? this can only lead to growth, and it's not always easy to grow, but we can't stay children forever. It's silly. We know this is real. We're being told by credible people. Congress is telling us in their own way it's real, right? On your show and many other shows. Now, we consider ourselves to be adults. It's time to be adults about this and have a national, international discussion with the way we discuss any other topics that we talk about every day. And sure, I think there could be all sorts of reactions. Are people going to be afraid to go outside of their homes? Let's say we've already been hybridized and that your neighbors could also be extraterrestrial. We don't know the ramifications of this. It's really huge. And there could be those reactions. But I mean, at some point I think we have to start going down this path. I think we'll be able to do it. I think we've all been inoculated now since the last 5 years or so with the types of discussion we've had in the news and so forth. So I think we're ready to do it, and the chips will fall where they may. The chips will fall where they may.
Well, I think the big worry that I have is how are people going to react? And in my conversation with Elizondo, one of the things that I asked him in my questioning was the idea that if you look at the way we have treated people during COVID, okay, the mass hysteria, the hoarding shopping from toilet paper to cereal. I mean, people buying 20 gallons of milk, even though the average person goes through a jug every 4 days. I mean, the milk will never last. Toilet paper, as I said, any type of drugs from Advil to Tylenol. We haven't treated people very well over the last couple of years. And Elizondo actually stated that was actually, the government was actually watching that. Sure. On the UFO team. I shouldn't say the government. The UFO people were actually watching that to see how people would react. With 2 minutes to go, I mean, aliens, man, I can't see people smartening up. We're too paranoid right now to smarten up and all of a sudden, like you say, grow up to this subject.
Yeah, no, Dave, we don't know what's going to happen, but I think the other side is you keep suppressing it and we increasingly get out of touch with reality and things change around us and we're less adapted to our world and our universe. I mean, there's a cost to that too. I know how my RV students will react to it. They're going to take out a sheet of paper and start going through phase 1, phase 2, and go through the protocol and see what they get. Kind of kidding about that, but the point is there's ways to get people ready for dealing with the unknown. You don't always have to be afraid of everything that's unknown. I mean, the first time you rode a bike, you probably scraped your knee. You still ride a bike. So, I mean, I think we're stronger than we think we are, and I think we can do it. That's just my view.
Well, you're a lot more positive than I am on it.
Okay,
and I hate to be the negative Nancy coming down on that, but I mean, I just don't know. I don't know who's in control. I have my feeling. In my presentation this week in Denver, one of the questions I'm going to ask, which I posed to my audience, is why now? We haven't had any journalist or anybody ask that question, and I think it's a split decision. Those who believe that maybe the phone call was answered, and those who believe that it's time to start figuring out what's in our sky. But Dr. Simeon Hein, I'm going to get you to hold on here for just a couple of moments because we are going to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. Dr. Simeon Hein is our guest. He's got a brand new book out called Dark Matter Monsters, which we're going to learn about a little bit later on in the show. It is an ebook that you can pick up, I believe, on Amazon, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
On Amazon. Worth the read, well-studied book. It is a good one. And when we return on Spaced Out Radio, let's get into some remote viewing.
Sure.
I'm looking at this, and I'm seeing a Gibson's guitar hanging on the wall.
Hey.
Simeon Hein. It may be red in color. Na. Spaced Out Radio continues after this. Is that a Gibson Les Paul or is that a Epiphone?
That's an Epiphone. That's an Epiphone imitation. Sounds pretty good.
Love it.
And, yeah, I like it sometimes, and I got a Strat down here too. So
Nice.
I bought it with my paper route money in high school. American made late 70s Strat, and it's been the sound of that. Yeah, I got to tell you
right now,
Dave, one of the highlights of my life was seeing Bumblefoot in concert a couple of years ago. He was part of this Moody Blues Yes Asia tour lineup, and he played with all three groups. I think it was tremendous to watch him play.
It should be illegal how good he is.
Yeah.
It really should be. Like, it amazes me, you get somebody of that talent and that they aren't everywhere. It just goes to show, like, if he was like 50 years ago going on, in that 70s, 80s, he would be as big as Eric Clapton. He really would.
He did an amazing job on one of Rick Beato's videos a couple days ago when Rick had alternate versions of the solo of AC/DC's Back in Black. And Bumblefoot did it with his fretless guitar. It was awesome to listen. It was a great song, but it was great to hear a couple variations from and Bumblefoot was one of them. So that was really, people should check that out if they love really good guitar. So
you know what? And I got to tell you, he is as nice a guy in person as he is, just with his generosity. Every time I'll message him, he will actually ask me how my son's guitar lessons are going. And he doesn't just say, how's your son's guitar lessons going? He'll actually use my son's name. And to me, that measures a lot of a man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
And it's so appreciative. Like it humbles me that here's this rock star. He's worth millions. There's bands all over the world begging for his talents, and he has time to ask about a 9-year-old boy who's taking guitar lessons by name.
Yes.
That says a lot about the man that he is.
Yeah, there are some really cool musicians out there that are also great people and great guitarists. And I feel like I've been fortunate to have been around some of them, having grown up since the 70s with great bands back then. I grew up near New York City, so I could go to Madison Square Garden. My first concert was Led Zeppelin. And,
nice.
Yeah, and I still remember John Bonham's, the drums. So, Madison Square, it's huge. And the energy of those four guys, it was just incredible. And I've been playing guitar ever since. It was just to see that was really 77 there. 77.
My little guy the other day, we're a Jackson guitar family. I haven't approached the Les Paul side of things yet, because that's just a hell of a lot more expensive. But my little guy the other day, he was playing on one of our guitars, the only one we have that has a whammy bar on it. And I'm taking him to see this metal group called Avatar later this month. They're out of Sweden. And one of their songs called Hail to the Apocalypse starts off where they're just really strumming hard on the top string. And their other hand is underneath the guitar, bringing down, like hammering on the whammy bar. And so my son was hearing that. He's like, I'm going to try that. So he goes and tries it. But instead of getting Avatar, it starts sounding like Iron Man from Black Sabbath. And my son is like, oh my God, Daddy, that sounds like Iron Man. And I'm like, well, play it. And so now he's all hooked on a whammy bar, to try and play that song. But he's really into Metallica right now. His guitar teacher is phenomenal in understanding that my son loves the metal and at a young age, and that's what he's teaching him. Some Slayer, some Black Sabbath and stuff like that. I'm just going to quickly open the window here. Excuse me one second. She's a little warm in studio tonight.
I'm reading the comments here. We've got some great folks in the audience tonight. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot of your fans in here. We got
Patrick, yes.
Hi, Bill WD40 over in Spreaker. You're looking gorgeous tonight. We got thank you to Thomas Fessler for kicking off the Super Chat. The Super Chat is a wonderful way to support what we do. I know times are tough out there for people, but it really helps out what we're doing on a nightly basis. Simeon, I'll get you to hold on, and we're going to go right now. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Dr. Simeon Hein is here. He's got a brand new book on Amazon called Dark Matter Monsters. It's an ebook.
Yes.
You want to check that on out, and it's always a good one because the one thing I love about Dr. Hein here is nothing is off limits, whether it's cryptids, UFOs, remote viewing, which we're going to get into next. And how do you stay so versatile? How do you have such an open mind with all of these topics? It's easy for me, not being an educated dude and an experiencer going through this, but for you, being as highly educated as you are, to have that open draw towards this.
No, it's a good question. I think my parents always taught me to pursue the truth at any cost. Don't settle for half truth, and don't try to be a popular person. Just go for what's real and keep pursuing it. And my dad was really interested always around the dinner table of asking us questions. You know, I'm from a German Jewish family, and those sorts of cultural roots, you're always about going deep into ideas and not just believing what you're told, but what's the evidence? It's just the background that I'm from. But look, our lives are all very short. We're not here forever. Do you want to know what's going on, or do you want to know what you've been told? It's different. And the more I went into these topics, Dave, and everyone who knows me, there's a really huge story going on out there, and we only have a tiny percent of it. Don't you really want to know what's going on? Forget the stories you've been told in school. Forget what the news tells you. What is really happening out there? It's a different story. And the more you go along with this, Dave, you realize there's a pretty big divergence between reality and what the stories were told. And I guess I'm just from a background, I'd really like to know what it is. And it's a really big, huge effing story. And I want to know what it is. And I don't care what the consequences are or if anyone likes it or not. I want to know the truth about this. All these topics, they're all connected. And this is a huge story, and we're part of it. I think it's our right to know what is our place in the universe.
And that actually led to my next question of whether or not you felt it was all connected, because for so many people who look into these, and 98% of the people who are looking into this, Dr. Hein, we're amateurs. We're not scientists. We're not researchers. We are amateurs who have had maybe an experience or a general curiosity that has led us down the paths that we have gone down. You know, I wouldn't be back in radio if it wasn't for my own experiences, as an example. And but for those out there, I mean, a lot of them separate the paranormal from the cryptid world, from the remote viewing world. And I mean, I can't believe there's people who think there's a real huge difference between astral travel and remote viewing. To me, it's almost one and the same. But in this field, we have debates like that. So for you, looking at it all being interconnected, how do we solve something this large when we can't even agree that remote viewing and astral travel are pretty much one of the same?
Because everything comes down to resonance, and that's what quantum mechanics, one of the most highly tested theories and research programs in our history tells us, that energy equals frequency times Planck's constant. And it was discovered 100 years by all those quantum physicists from Planck to Einstein, Mach, and just so many other people at the time, Schrodinger and Niels Bohr. And they had these huge arguments about this, Dave. But everyone agreed that it all came down to frequency and energy. This is not metaphysics. It is what science tells us. Everything is energy, everything's frequency. And at the base of what looks to be real is just vibration. And that's how you connect all these topics into kind of a unified theory of the paranormal. Is it's all just varieties of resonance. And that's what RV told me. I didn't believe it at first, but you're picking up information from your own future. You're picking up information from a target. Let me just show you some examples of this from our own examples of RV. I just want to show people quickly what this looks like. You have a target in a folder like this, right? It's just a picture of a place, a person, or an event. And you ask the viewer, describe what your feedback target is going to be, or describe what you're perceiving, what is in the target. And they can do amazing things like this. They can literally feel like they're at the target site and describe, and they don't even know if they're right. That's the funny thing about it. They could say, I'm just making this up, but I'm getting the Washington Monument. So, well, fine, just describe the colors, the shapes. You give them a picture of, a jet fighter, and they're going to get a jet fighter. Or in this case, a race car. It's a protocol. And this particular system was invented by Ingo Swan, who worked at SRI, a New York City artist. And the more you see this, and the more astounding it is. It can even be done double blind, where nobody knows what the target is. So, Dave, when you've seen enough of this, you realize the description of reality you were taught as a child, for the most part, it's probably wrong. There's more going on than you're consciously aware of. You're perceiving more information than your senses are picking up, and it's actually in there. You're actually aware of it. And if you learn a protocol that teaches you to separate noise from signal, that's really what RV is. Signal is very subtle. You train yourself to pay attention, and you just say, okay, I think this is wrong, but I'm going to describe it. It just seems like curves, jet plane, something moving fast. You can do it. And it just shows you that you're bigger than you thought you were. And I think that's kind of cool. And once it's like a gateway drug. RV is the gateway drug to all these other topics, because once you realize, wow, it's really real. RV, remote viewing, resonant viewing, whatever you want to call it, astral travel. It really doesn't matter what you want to call it. And they might be slightly different things. I can agree with that. But once you shatter the paradigm that everything is just solid and material and linear, this kind of slowed down version of reality that we've all been taught. Once you realize it's not true, I'm perceiving something from the other side of the world. I'm perceiving something even in the future, which we can show is true with RV, that you're perceiving future events a couple of days with a high degree of accuracy. Well, then what else is true that you haven't been taught about? That's how I was thinking. What else could be real that nobody taught me about? I mean, not in high school, not college, not graduate school. But Dave, by the time you get your PhD, you think you know what's going on. I did. Of course. You think I'm Dr. So-and-so now. And all of a sudden you didn't. You don't know what's going on. How many people by the time they get their PhD want to admit, I need to start from scratch all over again and start reading new books of new topics and really look into all these UFO contact reports and reports with cryptids? Maybe that's all true too. Oh my God. And you start looking with fresh eyes and you realize there's another story going on. And like the people who listen to this show have a certain degree of courage. Let's find out what it is. And then you start seeing there's a lot of evidence you were never told about. And isn't science based on evidence? And now we have a debate going. Let's talk about the evidence. So Dave, that's how it works, is if you're following the breadcrumbs and you're honest to yourself, you're saying, well, wait a minute, this seems pretty darn credible. I don't believe what these skeptics have said about it. I'm talking to this person and they're telling me there's more witnesses. Like I told you, Dr. Richard Hoover, and these are people are telling me, no, NASA has a timeline. They know about it. They don't want to talk about it. And you encounter more of these people. Anyway, you just start seeing there's a whole nother description of reality. It's bigger. And we have the science to deal with it. Even Colin Keller and George Knapp in their book Hunt for the Skinwalker. There's some great quotes in there where they say, no, this isn't non-scientific. This is exactly what quantum mechanics tell us. And it's funny, in that book, Hunt for the Skinwalker, they don't get to the multiverse stuff till the epilogue. I'm going through it recently, saying, oh, this is good. It sounds like multiverse. When are they going to bring this up? And finally, the epilogue. Oh, yes, we're going to talk about Hugh Everett III and Max Tegmark and all sorts of people that have proposed parallel realities. And they conclude, oh, this is all consistent with science. Well, it's a little different science than we were taught, but yeah, it's scientific.
I want to ask you, and I've never asked this to a remote viewer before, okay, but I'm hearing more and more of this where people have this natural ability to remote view or astral travel.
Yeah.
Are those people easier to teach than someone who's just like, hey, I've never done this before, but I'm interested. I want to take these courses. I want to learn how to do it. Or are they more difficult because you don't know what progression they are at that point, having it happen naturally?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. I think it's really hard to know ahead of time who's going to be a really accurate remote viewer, because you would tend to think it would be the people, that's, some people have called that the sheep goat effect, that the people that are open to it tend to be better. And we've heard that that's true, that the people that, are a little more open-minded might be better at it. Yet at the same time, if you ask someone like Russell Targ, he's responded to this question many times at the IRVA conferences, International Remote Viewing Association conferences. I have one's coming up soon in Menlo Park at the end of July, by the way. He's been asked this question. He always said it was the skeptics from the intelligence agencies that would come out to monitor them at SRI. And they would say, well, will you become the viewer? We're going to let you do it. We're not going to prove it to you. And they would start doing this, and they would say, there must be a trick. You were piping the sound in subliminally, and they would insist on being locked in the room, and the protocols got stricter, and they still were good viewers. So sometimes it's people that you didn't expect. Now, I asked this question of Ingo Swan at one of the IRVA conferences in Vegas. Oh, it was probably around 2005. And he said it's musicians and artists that are better at this because they're already opening to listening to the right brain. And we know that RV comes more from the bicameral brain, that there's evidence for that the right brain does different things than the right brain is more holistic and design oriented, and the left brain's a little more analytical and linear and rational. So people that are more musically and artistically oriented are a little more already in that direction of kind of being balanced hemispherically. I think that's what Ingo was suggesting. But the bottom line is, Dave, that everyone has an experience of this from time to time. And I think you know what I mean. You get this premonition sometimes about people in your lives, loved ones, family, trips you're about to take, maybe the route you're going to take commuting to work. And you just get a feeling about it. It turns out to be accurate. I hear this all the time from all sorts of people who've taken the classes and just ordinary people. And you find the premonition turns out to be true. Like you pick up the phone, you know who it is, that sort of thing. You get a feeling you should call so-and-so and something happened. That, again, is the resonance. I mean, it filters through the ethers because everything is energy, and energy isn't contained. It spreads out throughout the matrix. That's what Ingo called it, the matrix, before the movie. And there's a matrix of information, and the future is there. The past. If you want to wrap your mind around this, guys, it's almost like everything's happening at once. And what we're perceiving right now is a tiny little sliver of what you can handle. And all these different realities are stacked together, but there's bleed through. There's bleed through between the parallel realities. And for me, that's the model that explains it. So it's not kind of surprising that if you, like when you throw a rock into a pond, some of the waves go that way, but some come back to you. And some of your own future is already coming back to you, and people you're in resonance with, people in your life. And I think it's how nature works. It's almost our sense of this mechanistic way we were taught that's really the aberration, not the fact that we can all do this.
So people who can do this naturally, is this just an ability that they know? Like, I'll be honest with you. I can astral travel. People have asked me, how do you do it? I can't explain it. I don't know where. It's not something that I could say I've done it maybe 12, 14 times. okay, 15 times. It's not something that I practice. It's not something that I don't think I'm accurate about. I would say on an accuracy level, I'm probably between 60 and 80% in there. But for many others, you know, they are just bang on. They're so in tune with their own consciousness and their own intuition that they can go into a situation that's free and clear of themselves and be 90 to 95% of accuracy of what they're seeing. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
is the brain functioning a little bit different? Is that what it is?
Well, that has something to do with it. I mean, we all have this conditioning for those of us growing up in a Western society to be, rational and linear and analytical. But what I think is going on is that we're all multidimensional beings naturally, pretending to be linear and rational and mechanical during our conscious waking moments, if that sort of makes any sense. You could almost look at it, Dave, like the waking state is a type of a dream, a delusion from a multidimensional state, that is reality. But how much of that can you handle at any one moment? And we are physical beings, who have physical and biological things we need to take care of every day. So we're really focused. I mean, and the evidence shows, if you look, one of Ingo's favorite books that he would talk about is The User Illusion by Tor Nordstranders, a Danish science writer. And what this book showed, I came across it before hearing about it from Ingo, but it's a great book from around 2000, where he shows that what we're conscious of, forget RV for a second, what we're conscious of from our senses, do you know how small that is of the total amount of information that we're actually taking in every second? It's on the order of a 10,000th of a percent of all the information. I think Nordstrander said we're perceiving about 16 bits out of 40 million per second. 16 bits is like a CD. You remember the CDs before we went? Yeah. CDs, 16 bit. That is the amount of information we're perceiving per second out of 40 million that come into our consciousness. So you could say that we're unconscious while we're awake. No joke. If that's true, if Nordstranders is correct, we're not even awake right now. What we're perceiving is a tiny sliver of reality. Is it any surprise that there are other things happening, other beings, other types of energy around us that it might take a little bit of training to learn to perceive again, like when you were a little kid? And people said, oh, those are just imaginary friends. But maybe it's just much bigger than your conscious mind can handle. Now, look, we're people that live in reality. We have to focus. It's nothing wrong with that. To survive every day, we're all very busy people, challenged by lots of things. So we have this very strong focusing mechanism, but that doesn't mean that that's all we're perceiving. That just means that's all we've been trained to look at. And actually, we've been discouraged from broadening that bandwidth. I would say the analogy, Dave, is like this. There's lots of radio stations on the AM and FM dial, or even the internet at the same time, and we're just tuned into one, but that doesn't mean the other ones don't exist. You're just tuned into one at that particular moment.
What about children? We never hear about children remote viewing, or you made a good point earlier on about a minute ago about, that we kind of ignore children when they say they're seeing things, and we dismiss it as imagination or fantasy friends or whatever it may be. Yet I've always heard this from my spiritualist friends and people who are way more in tune than me, that we as children start to lose perception of our consciousness and our abilities between the ages of 7 and 12, because that's really where society starts to take a handle for us. Kids start to learn embarrassment and feeling bullied, and they start questioning what they've learned because other kids know different, and maybe it's cooler what those other kids know. So I mean, how do we bring this back out of children? And let's get the child portion of this, if you don't mind.
No, I think that's absolutely right. RV is something I think we all did naturally as kids. And when I do my classes, I tell people this is not something that you need to learn how to do. It's something you need to remember how you did it when you were a kid, before you were told to stop daydreaming and stop playing with your imaginary friends. Some of them being your furry imaginary friends in the forest that your parents said, oh, that's just, that's just your imagination, but maybe it's not. I think what you're saying is true. This is our natural state. And because of our socialization, which I'm not saying isn't necessary for society to function the way it is right now, but that doesn't mean the bandwidth hasn't been narrowed down to become more practical. But the cost of that is we have this sense of loss of, we're out of touch with who we are. We're out of touch with our natural abilities. Sociologists call it, like Max Weber called it, disenchantment. This feeling of meaninglessness. That's the cost of losing touch with these abilities, because in reality, life is full of these wonderful things that happen, but we're not trained to look at that because we're so convinced. It's really about, like what you're hinting at, the way we appear in front of other people, being respectable, being fitting in, that conformity that's driven into us. And your band from Canada, Rush, they had a lot of songs about this, didn't they? About that conformity and suburbia, Geddy Lee's. Yeah. So, I mean, it is, we have to get in touch again. Dave, all of these topics, I'm convinced that you cover on your show and that the audience is interested in. These is the way nature works. This is not paranormal. This is normal. What we call paranormal is the way nature really works. What we call normal is, as what Ingo said, some sort of subnormality. That's why it doesn't feel right, because it's not the way nature intended us to be. Shut down, narrowed, and so forth. We're modern people, but we've paid a cost to be modern. We have paid a cost to be modern, which is a very narrow bandwidth. And then we start thinking everything's paranormal when that's the way nature really is, which is kind of strange and multidimensional and in some ways very hard to define.
2 minutes to go. How do we bring that back out of children? Like, I look at my son, who is 9 years old.
Yeah.
And we keep it very open. Like, he'll ask me about Sasquatch and UFOs and aliens, and like, we keep an open mind with him. But I can see him, getting more into that facade of school and learning and him acing mathematics. I see it changing. How do we get that back in kids?
Kids need to be encouraged to be who they're going to be themselves, and to have integrity, not to be afraid to be yourself. I think it's that simple. When I grew up, my parents had something on the wall called the Desiderata. Do you remember that?
No, I'm not familiar.
It was this whole thing about marching to the tune of a different drummer. That was the final line in it. And I used to read this on the wall in my house, and I grew up believing it. It was about being true to yourself and not being afraid of what other people think of you. And that's really what it comes down to, is not being afraid of how other people might see you if you pursue your own truth. It's about being true to yourself and sticking to that at extreme costs, because the reward is you really feel connected to who you are and who you're supposed to be. And that's a very intangible thing that only you can define for yourself. No one actually can do it for you. And we have plenty of examples of people in our own lives that we know about who've really stuck to their guns and created totally new things because they weren't afraid to be seen as crazy. Here's to the crazy ones. Hello. So that's really what it comes down to, is not educating everyone to be the same, to be a puzzle piece that fits in all the same, square shapes and so forth. Our educational system is so mechanistic. It actually should be encouraging us to find our own special abilities and natural talents. I think that's how people stay happy and engaged with their lives. That's my personal view on it, since you asked.
I'm going to get you to hold on right there, because we are going to go into the break here at the top of the hour. Hard to believe we're already an hour in with Dr. Simeon Hein, whose book, his ebook, Dark Matter Monsters, can be found on Amazon right now. When we come back, we'll take some of your questions. We're going to get into some cryptids. We're going all over the place tonight with Dr. Hein, because he's just that awesome. We'll be back with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio right after this. All right, we are clear.
Okay.
Thank you. My last 4 super chats, all Canadian. Thank you for the non-treasonous money that you are putting towards Spaced Out Radio. We're having some fun with this tonight. Dirty Filth, you're about to take this thing over, man. So tell us what you got so far, man.
Well, it's a cartoon so far, Dave. But we'd like to.
All right.
Wonder why you. But he's gonna run away after saying words incorrectly. Unbelievable. Classic Dave Scott. Facade. Unbelievable. He did that on purpose, everybody. But nonetheless, this is a cartoon of at least a cat and possibly an alien. There might be a Sasquatch hiding in the background, but nobody's gonna know until the end gets there. I guess it's pretty obvious now. Still can't believe it. So, went to my dad's tonight, and some guitar music going on there. It's way better than my rambling. But you can't stop now. Keep going.
What, the finger picking?
Just knock it out of the park, man. Sounds good.
Beautiful.
Yes. There's nothing like a Loudon. And there's a crop circle story connected to this guitar. I'll tell you about it.
Oh, yeah. We're going to get into a lot more with that, too. What kind of acoustic is that? That sounds beautiful.
That is a Loudon from Northern Ireland. And I actually brought it back to Belfast for them to repair it once after one of the crop circle tours in the 90s. So I got to visit Ireland, Northern Ireland, to repair some cracks in here that happened because of the dryness of Colorado.
Right.
And,
beautiful.
Yeah. And you know what they did to fix it? These cracks? What? They let it sit by an open window next to the Irish Sea for 3 months. That's what they said. You just
hold on right there. Here we go. Sorry.
Good.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hi to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Kibble. Kibble is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire, check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and now on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Dr. Simeon Hein. He's got a brand new book out, an ebook called Dark Matter Monsters. You can find that on Amazon right now. It just came out 2 days ago, so it's literally brand new. You want to add it to your library. And we're going to get into some audience questions and some cryptid talk in this next half hour. Dr. Hein, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Good to have you here. Let's get some audience questions right off the back. Kim is asking, is space-time dead? Is there a new fundamental theory?
Is space-time dead? You mean like general relativity theory from Einstein? No, like space-time, gravity. Yeah, I do think there is a newer theory, and that's why I wrote a new book about it. There are other states of matter that are around us, and I wouldn't say that space-time is dead. It's just there's more space-time than you thought was there. How about that? And it's multidimensional, and there are other states of matter that come in and out of that you may not see all the time, but they're there. So I think there is new ideas, and I think it comes out of linear low-energy nuclear reaction, what used to be called cold fusion, condensed matter, other states of matter beyond plasmas, self-organized states of quantum coherent matter. So yeah, I think there's a new theory, and I think we can talk about that. Mm-hmm.
Well, let's take a 90-degree turn here for a quick second, because, you mentioned the multidimensional theory, and, I always wonder if a lot of these cryptids, a lot of these creatures or whatever are being seen as doorways to these other dimensions are opening up, kind of like portals. And we actually get a television-like view of these creatures. Where do you stand on that?
Well, I think the evidence is really pretty clear here, is that there are life forms at other frequencies that we may not perceive. We were talking about that in the previous hour. You just don't perceive all the frequencies that are out there. What percent of even physical light do we perceive? A tiny percent of the electromagnetic spectrum, our senses. It's just a small fraction. So, Dave, you could look at it like parallel realities, even in a simple way, like, and I don't know if this comes from your show in the past, but even when you go by ants, they're kind of in a different reality. They're not really aware of you, and you really don't know exactly what they're doing, but they're next to you, right? But they probably don't even see you. So it's not even something that requires a huge stretch of the imagination to imagine that there are life forms that are around us that you're not really aware of because you're tuned to other humans. But that doesn't mean that they're not there. And I think we can go into the evidence if you want to show that there's just other types of life around us that we see sometimes, that we're at the same frequency that it's at. And all of a sudden there's contact and then it goes back where it's from. Something like that.
Okay, one example that I love to give when we're talking cryptids, and then we'll move on to more questions because I know they are adding up, is thunderbirds.
Mm.
A 40-foot bird is bigger than a lot of airplanes, like Cessna type airplanes.
Yeah.
And that's going to appear on radar. And yet,
Right.
You know, you don't see mountainsides painted with bird poop from thunderbirds. You don't see cars that were once red now painted white and gray. You know, the food source would be massive, you know, for a creature like that. They would be hunting the big game like moose and elk and bear and that sort of stuff, you know, whales and dolphins and sharks. We don't see that happening. So I'm very curious in regards to like an example like the thunderbird, which so many people have seen, yet there's never any evidence of a nest or nesting areas or droppings.
Really good question, isn't it? It's what we all think about when we think about these cryptids. And they must be going back to another type of reality. They're coming into our shared reality, or we're going into theirs. We're meeting in the middle, and then they're going back wherever they're from, and we're in our version of it. It has to be something like that because, yeah, exactly right. I've read these stories of people's encounters with thunderbirds. I've run into people that say they know Native Americans on the Crow Reservation up in Montana that have encountered these thunderbirds. And then you start to wonder, are they picked up by radar? Are they seen from, you know, small private planes? And, you know, for the most part, they're not. But the witnesses have seen them, and there's even been contact with them. They can be aggressive, we're told from the witness encounters. Huge. So it's a really good question. And the only way I can make sense of it is that what we consider to be reality is just a sliver of it. It's a much bigger room, a much bigger house with lots of different rooms in it. And sometimes the door's open to the other rooms and there's some interaction and the door's shut again. That's all right. I could be wrong, but that's what I think.
Love that answer. So thank you so much. Let's go to Christine. Simeon, how did you get into remote viewing or resonant viewing? Were you born with it, or did you have to learn it through training with others?
No, I heard someone talking about it on my local radio station, and I was initially skeptical. It was Courtney Brown from the Farsight Institute back in '96. He was on this local, the KGNU radio station here in Boulder. And I heard him talking about it, and there was a part of me that was kind of incredulous. Again, I had just gotten my PhD. I thought, I don't think that the average person could do this. I thought you have to be special. We had all seen those women psychics on TV in, like, I think it was the 80s, right? They would do the psychic detective work and so forth. So I knew about this. I thought you had to be special, but I thought, listen, the only way to find out if this is real is go and take his class. And then you'll know either it doesn't work and he's making this all up, or this really works and what you thought reality was actually just a small version of it. So it was actually taking a class and doing things like I showed you in these sessions a few moments ago. Actually, the first real target contact I had, I think it was the target of Cancun, Mexico. And it was shocking to see I'd drawn a beach. I had drawn waves, hotels behind the beach, people speaking Spanish. And you think, I'm making this all up. Then you see the picture. You can match the rocks that you drew in your session to the rocks in the target photo. I mean, it's a mind-blowing experience to do this for the first time. You should try it in any way you can. And then you say, wow, how did I do that? That's how it all starts.
Awesome. Dr. Simeon Hein is here tonight. All right, let's continue on with another audience question from Kronos. What is your site to sign up for your RV lessons?
Oh, it's virtualviewing.org. Virtualviewing.org. And I have self-paced classes. There's even a free class. You don't even have to pay anything. You know, I have a whole series of videos you can go through and learn what it's like. I've been doing them over Zoom, Dave, because I mean, I used to have people come here to Boulder and be a lot of fun, or travel to another location, but you know, COVID came along. So I've been doing them over Zoom, and we finished a couple of classes, beginning and advanced, just in June, May. So I'm taking a little break for the moment over the summer. We'll have some Zoom classes again in the fall.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. Just, you know, it's just fun to learn about yourself. It's not about being special and having special abilities. I know there's like, look, there's like this spooky aura around these topics, but that isn't how Dr. Hein sees it. Dr. Hein says these are natural things. This is how nature intended it to be. I'm not trying to be religious, but I mean, this is how nature works. It's just about doing things the way nature does, and nature works through resonance. So you're just tapping into what's already there. And that's what I think is really neat about it. It's not, you know, not learning something new, remembering how to do something you already know how to do.
All right. You know, Jules, she is asking, what is the connection between coherent matter and cryptids and poltergeist stuff?
Great question, Jules. Glad you asked. This is really the biggie for me. And in looking at all these topics, Dave, it started for me in the crop circles. We were given this crop circle target in 96 in the RV class back at the Farsight Institute. And I just said, I have to go over and see what these are. What are these crop circles? I didn't even know what that was. So I went on this tour with a guy named Ron Russell, who lives in the Denver area here. And the thing that I saw was people were encountering balls of light and orbs around the crop circles, and magnetic electrical camera failure, equipment failure, weird electromagnetic effects. And that really got me hooked. How could just swirling wheat around create orbs and have your cameras and batteries die? So I have been really fascinated by this ever since 1997. And I have been studying every little article I could find about how organized matter and shapes could create energy. And what you end up with is cold fusion, low energy nuclear reaction is a type of micro ball lightning. And that's what we're learning about. And that's what this all comes down to, is when you create certain types of fractal shapes and swirls, you're tapping into the quantum vacuum field directly from these kind of nested swirls and shapes. And by the way, we just found out a couple of weeks ago from previously unknown papers from the end of the Soviet Union classified research that they came to that same conclusion too, is that fractal nested spirals create a type of electromagnetic resonance, which taps into the vacuum field directly to quantum. That's what these papers say, Zverblis, Nevesky, a whole bunch of others that I've read. So it really made sense of the whole thing. And so what it suggests to us is there are other types of matter that don't act in a way that our physical matter is used to acting. It can do other things, and it's more powerful than ordinary matter. That's what they say. And even here's the cool thing about this, Jules and Dave. Researchers at Stanford Linear Accelerator Center in the 90s came to the same conclusion as these Soviet researchers. They called it diality rotation, which is basically that the angle between electric and magnetic fields changes, diality rotation. And all of a sudden you're creating another type of matter with its own rules, coherent matter where the particles are all sort of becoming sort of like the same. It creates ball lightning and what we call a fifth state of matter, past plasmas. We're all familiar with solids, liquids, and gases, right? And plasmas, you know, fluorescent lights and lightning and stars and things are plasmas. It's the most common form of matter. But past plasmas is a self-organized type of matter that is called coherent matter. And I'm really convinced that all of these phenomena that we call paranormal, all of them are a type of coherent matter with its own rules of the game. It has dark modes. We can get into this because our own CIA found this out in their study of orbs. Did you know that there was a classified orb program within the CIA? That's what John Ramirez, who made all the podcast circles not too long ago. Remember John Ramirez, the signals analyst? Yes. He talked about dark plasmas. You couldn't see them. And what did we learn about in Lukatsky and Knapp and Kellerer's book, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon? That when they sent analysts out there to Skinwalker Ranch, what were they encountering? Like these dark shapes that, looked like black holes hovering over a path, and they felt these feelings of fear and so forth, and their instruments went haywire. That's literally what they are encountering, is this type of coherent matter, which has a dark mode, and it can feel, it creates this cold around it because of the coherency. It absorbs heat. So I think, and again, thanks for asking the question. I think a lot of these phenomena are related to a fifth state of matter, which, it's been known about for decades, but it's been classified because I guess it has a lot of different applications. And I think what we call paranormal is another state of matter with its own rules and ways of operating, and it can do some pretty strange stuff. It's pretty powerful. Pretty powerful. And that's, again, by the way, what if you read these people who've been involved with cold fusion LENR for decades, Alexander Parkhomov from Russia, Takeaki Matsumoto from Japan, and even Kenneth Shoulders, who was a colleague of Hal Puthoff's. Kenneth Shoulders with his exotic vacuum objects. They all were saying the same thing. There's another state of matter, charge clusters. They come together. They form these balls, these really dense clusters of matter where they're, the particles are at the same frequency, and they can just do things like go through solid objects and just do all sorts of things that ordinary matter doesn't do. And it's a type of gravity collapse, basically. That's what we're talking about. I think it's all come together in a very interesting way, but that's the answer to that long-winded answer to your question, Jules. Thanks.
YJ in British Columbia is asking, is consciousness being added into the new scientific theorem to fill in the gaps?
Not quite. If someone has done it, I haven't seen it. It's a good question. We all wonder, how does my sense of free will interact with all these scientific ideas? And it just tells us there's no final explanation to all of this. We're all living beings that make decisions and have choices, I believe. But what it does mean is that there's other types of consciousness out there that we weren't told about. And it's on this show all the time. And we can call them cryptids. It's a good way to talk about it. But there's just a lot more out there than we were told about. And it seems to totally make sense with our understanding of other states of matter, coherent states of matter. And it's all completely consistent with quantum mechanics, by the way. It's macro. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. We were always taught that quantum mechanics applies only to the really small microscopic subatomic ray. That was the big debate between Bohr and Einstein and all those quantum physicists 100 years ago, is does it apply to macroscopic objects? Is there some sort of quantum wave collapse, right? If quantum mechanics really works, how does it describe objects that were around if it's only subatomic things? Well, these ideas that we're getting out of cold fusion, LENR, Fleischmann and Pons at the University of Utah in '89. There are these macroscopic quantum coherent objects that, they're obeying all the laws of science, like Keller and Knapp told us in Hunt for the Skinwalker, but they're doing it at a sort of scale that we're interacting with. And it's a little weird. It seems paranormal, right? But what has Lou Elizondo told us over and over again? Para means next to, right? Paramedic, parachute. These aren't strange and spooky things. You're paramedic. They're just next to the medics. Paranormal is next to the normal. I think what we're going to find out is that there's other states of normalcy, other states of matter life that is next to what we consider to be ordinary matter. And it's not that far away. And it's not always there. Like we were saying a few minutes ago, it sort of goes off into its own room. The doorway opens, comes back. I think it's a frequency resonance thing.
Right. Okay. Before we get into any more questions, I know you have researched heavily into crop circles.
Yeah.
Where would you place them in the realm of the supernatural? Would you place them in the extraterrestrial realm? Would you place them in the cryptid realm? Where would you go with this?
No, they're a really interesting subject. When I first got involved with it, we didn't think that people could be involved in a direct way. We didn't think anyone could make those patterns. I did end up meeting human circle makers. They challenged me. They said, do you want to come out with us at night? If you don't think we can do it, come out with us at night and see if we can do it. They could do it. It was a real big shock to find out that people with boards and ropes and pretty good backgrounds in graphic design could actually create a very coherent looking pattern. But that wasn't the most important thing. It was that it didn't matter if it was made by a UFO or a person. Is if you'd go in it the next day, Dave, you would have your cameras and batteries stop working. You'd have your laptops go out. And I've talked to camera crews, National Geographic, who've had it happen to their own cameras by different locations, Silbury Hill in Wiltshire, UK, places like that. So again, what it shows us is that shapes affect energy. And in the case of crop circles, it really seems like you're generating something that Paul Dirac talked about in the 1920s, magnetic monopoles. These are magnetic, magnetic fields without a north or a south, just kind of like electricity, just like a certain amount of it, a scalar field of magnetism, which is something that, has been debated for a long time. And Dirac said it should exist. It seems like you can temporarily produce these magnetic fields from substances that you wouldn't think you could do it from. Wheat. But if you swirl the wheat around in the right way in sort of these correct proportions, sort of these fractal nested shapes, you're creating these sort of toroidal shapes that what we've learned from cold fusion lunar actually interacts with the quantum field. And I know that could sound like, like woo, but it isn't, because I can show you all the papers the real serious papers that show that this is true. The shapes create energy. So that's where I think it shows us that shapes create energy, energy creates shapes. And where it fits in this whole spectrum of phenomena is that it shows us that what looks like to be standard ordinary reality with certain set rules and three-dimensional mechanistic rules can actually change pretty quickly if you put a spiral into it. So it shows us the power of geometry and shape in creating energy. That's how I would see it.
Okay, so what is actually happening with these crop circles? Are they natural? We've seen videos, some believe they're hoaxed, regarding, little orbs of light, flying over fields and all of a sudden the shapes are made. Are they patterns of mathematics? What exactly is the theory behind it?
It's all of the above. And I know that there are people that want it to be this, they want it to be that. There are people that say it's got to be all UFOs. There are people that say it's got to be all man-made. None of that is correct. It's a bit of both. I have talked to witnesses, and this again for Black Swan Ghosts, I interviewed a woman, Louise Vobes, who's passed on, but you can watch her videos of me interviewing her on the blackswanghost.com website. She said to me when they were picking huckleberries in northern Washington, close to your country, up by the border there, that this disc came over at the classic fluttering leaf pattern. And she said it was hovering, and some people there did actually call the sheriff, and the military came up not too long afterwards from Spokane. But before that happened, she said it went down over the meadow and went like, whoosh. That was the sound she made. It completely flattened the plant, she said. I said, how flattened? She said, flat as a pancake. What does that sound like? Flat as a pancake. It's like those Tully saucer nests from Australia that Doug and Dave were attempting to reproduce in the UK. So there's a bit of UFOs involved in it. There is a bit of actually cyclonic activity from thunderstorms creating some of the swirls, whirlwinds and so forth. And they're human circle makers. I met them who want to reproduce that, who made them really big and really perfect. And those are the ones that we saw in the 90s. So I'd say it's a little bit of all of it.
Well, let's get a little bit more into that in the cryptid senses. We got Simeon Hein here. The doctor has a new book out, Dark Matter Monsters. It's an ebook that can be found on Amazon right now. It's only 2 days onto Amazon. Let's send the entire Spaced Out Radio crowd over there to get it. We got them till the top of the hour. We're going to see if we can stretch them on out. We got way too much to talk about. Spaced Out Radio continues with Dr. Simeon Hein right after this. All right, we're clear.
Yes, we're going to have to get into this because this is how it really gets interesting. Is can you really bend space-time with shapes? And it seems like you can. All sorts of stuff comes out of it. That's my view to answer the question. I know we're going to. So,
are you gonna play for us again?
Yes, I am. Hold on a second.
All right, that'd be beautiful.
All right, let's see.
That was fantastic. Thank you.
Well, what do you expect for someone whose first concert was Led Zeppelin?
It's beautiful. I am enjoying every moment of it, man. Every moment.
Yeah. So this, guys, is the DADGAD tuning. This is DADGAD. And I learned this from a French guitarist named Pierre Bensoussan. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he loved the DADGAD tuning. It's a kind of an Irish tuning. And you can do a lot of Irish songs in it. Since we have another second, these Irish kind of stuff like that. So it's kind of a Celtic Irish tuning, and you can play these beautiful Celtic things. Yes.
Beautiful.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Oh, I could sit there and just listen, man.
So the story of this guitar was, I went to Belfast. They said it doesn't need anything but humidity, and we're going to leave it by an open window for 3 months. And that's all we're going to do. So they sent it back to me, UPS, really expensive UPS from Northern Ireland to Colorado. And it was perfect when it came back. All the cracks had healed. It was just in perfect shape. And that's the key, is guitars need humidity. They're made of wood. So
very true.
Do not take them for granted. They need their humidity, and it sounded great to this day. So that's it.
Awesome. Hey, quickly here, I want to say hello and thank you to Thomas, Ken, Phil, Vaughn, and YJ for the awesome super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you so much for showing us the love. If you are looking to support this show, you can also go to our website, spacedoutradio.com, click on the store. We got great swag there for you, so you're going to want to check that on out as well. And we're just going to roll with it here. We got a good show planned, Dr. Simeon Hein, and here we go with the next half hour. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate hurting your listening ears. I want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. We continue on tonight with Dr. Simeon Hein. He's got a brand new book coming out, Dark Matter Monsters. We're going to get more into crop circles and monsters as we go on. And, of course, his book can be found, it's an ebook, on Amazon right now. It came out just 2 days ago. Dr. Hein, welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
All right. Right before the break, we were talking about crop circles here. Yeah. And the idea that, that this might be a little bit man-made, a little weather-made, a little alien-made. I mean, it's just a Kmart blue light special of who's making these things.
Yeah. So this is what I think about it, Dave, is no matter who makes it, if you create certain patterns, certain shapes, certain ratios in sort of fractal proportions, and what people, fractals mean that the small scale looks like the big scale, kind of like our lung structure trees, that the small looks like the big. That's sort of the idea of fractal. And we can get into how it was all discovered, but the idea that micro is like the macro. It doesn't matter the scale. If there are these certain nested proportions, what I found is that a lot of the ones that knocked out our cameras and batteries were the ones with larger circles and smaller circles within the bigger circles, and this, like that sort of fractal ratio, that it is creating a type of, coherent matter right there in the crop circle. It's like a portal. And the reason we know that's true is the time slip experiences that people have. I write about this in Dark Matter Monsters because the people that I've known that I gave tours there for many years until COVID, going over to bring people to the crop circles. People have these experiences where they feel like, they go back out to their car from the crop circle, maybe to get some more batteries for their camera. And they feel like they're gone for half an hour. They feel they've encountered some strange things. It's a little bit like, and we can get into this like Bigfoot, like this sort of space-time distortion. Things don't look right all of a sudden. Some of these cryptid witnesses, by the way, Dave, some of the things they've said to me is like the trees didn't look right all of a sudden. I'm sure you've heard this. Things didn't feel right. It's like space-time has been stretched in some weird way. It doesn't feel right. That's the same effect that some people have reported around the crop circles. All of a sudden, they thought they were gone for half an hour, and they go back and the people said, you were just gone for 5 minutes. They felt like they were in a different time. In one case, a gentleman I know said he encountered people that felt like they were from the Middle Ages, speaking another type of English, wearing different clothing, and things didn't look right. It's the classic time slip experience, a whole nother topic in itself. Dave, you probably know people that have experienced this. They went somewhere. They went into a restaurant that they found the next day had been closed for 20 years. I'm sure you've heard of these. You probably have had many guests on.
I love stories like that.
I've talked to people who've had it happen to them, people I know, friends. And it is one of the strangest things where they swear they stopped here. The weird thing was the food was very inexpensive. It seemed like from 50, 100 years ago, they only paid a quarter for it. The whole thing is off. And then they go back the next day and nothing's there, but they swear that they had that interaction. Well, that sort of thing happens around cryptids. It happens around crop circles, and even to some extent in UFO contact. So in my mind, I'm saying there's got to be a commonality between these experiences, because the time space aberrations that people experience are so similar. Why else would you have it happen in all these different contexts unless there's some fundamental underlying principle that sort of says that different states of matter kind of distort space-time, but distort in a sense that what we're used to. And again, going back to what Hal Puthoff told us at that IRVA conference when he talked about OSAP and ATIP. And he did tell us, by the way, that ATIP was a nickname for OSAP at that conference. You can see it on YouTube. He said it's called OSAP and the nickname was ATIP, but we don't have to get into that debate right now. What he said is the way he thought UFOs worked was by actually changing, the structure of space-time, what's called permittivity and permeability. The electrical component, like how electrically conductive space is and how magnetically conductive it is. If you change those constants just a little bit, since the speed of light is based on permittivity and permeability, if you had a technology, a quantum technology that could actually interact with the structure of space-time and alter it, you would alter space-time. And that's how he said one conclusion that I guess agencies that have investigated this have come to, is that it's a technology that, okay, so when we go into crop circles, we're around cryptids and we have these weird space-time experiences. Things just seem weird. The trees don't look right, that whole thing. How about if you could actually control that so you could move around in space-time the way you wanted? What Hal suggested to us at that lecture was that that's exactly what the extraterrestrials or whoever these are can do. So that's how I think these are connected. You could call it, as simply as possible, all of these topics, a type of vacuum engineering, quantum vacuum engineering. Instead of it being constant like we're used to, the clock ticking away in a very orderly way, it becomes more malleable, more permeable, more fluid. And that's what I think all these phenomena are. Now, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but that's how I look at it. That's how I look at it.
See, one of the things that confuses me about it is the patterns that these crop circles have. Sure. They are they're beautiful. They're extremely artistic, extremely angled and everything to perfection. I don't see how nature or even humans can be that perfect by taking a wheat and a rope and a board and stepping on wheat like Bob and Doug over in the UK, not the Canadian Bob and Doug, though. I mean, that would take a few beers, but nonetheless, I just don't see that happening.
I didn't think so either till I saw them do it. And I mean, I did get to see them make more and more of them the first time. And I wrote about that in Opening Minds. Here's a nice crop circle right on the cover. This is just the bookmark from it. And I wrote about, they showed me the pattern ahead of time. And then they took me out. There was a lot of debate whether I should be blindfolded before we went to the location, because they didn't want me, maybe I'd run away in the middle of the night and call the police. They didn't know how I'd react. Maybe I wouldn't take it well and flip out, seeing guys with boards and ropes and all. But look, what I saw was they really knew what they were doing. I was surprised. They were really good in the dark. They had ways of communicating through rope tugs and stuff with the equipment, sometimes used lasers to get really straight angles. But the most shocking thing was people came in the next day. I went back to see, what was there. How did it feel? We had these static meters, Dave. We would test the static. We would find a lot of static charge around some of these crop circles. I went back the next day. People were having all sorts of interesting experiences around it, and the feelings in crop circles, it's really cool. It can make you kind of giddy. that feeling of static and electrical charge. They were able to reproduce it, but they did it. They were able to reproduce a real electromagnetic effect. But Dave, they did it because they were sincere. They didn't do it as a hoax. What one of them called it was natural magic. Natural magic. And so the ones that I met, and I'm not saying every single circle maker was like this, they weren't doing it to try to fool people or create a hoax. They were creating a sort of a natural, magical technology out of the wheat. And I think they were successful at doing this. Now, part of the art of doing that is making it look like a human couldn't do it, because that's kind of the art often has a lot of subterfuge. It like fools your eye and so forth. It's just color and paint on a canvas, but to your eye, it's fruits and mountains and landscapes and people, but it's just, paint and ink, but your brain perceives it as objects and beautiful things. These are artists, the ones I met, that were very good at creating optical illusions, and they would plan these out. In fact, right back there on my shelf, we went to an auction once where they raised money for the ecological group Sea Shepherd. They sold off the original drawings, and perhaps at some point I will show the original patterns that they used to make the biggies. And I haven't made it public because I don't want to disappoint people too much, but some of them were ones that we're familiar with, the big patterns. But Dave, they got really good at it. But the real thing to me was, why would that create balls of light? They told me they were chased out by orbs sometimes when they were making these and never finished. So that's what you really have to wonder. Why would orbs show up at man-made circles if we're to believe these stories? And, 20-year-old strong guys with boards running for their lives out of the fields being chased by orbs. There's a bigger story going on here. And again, I think we're contacting different types of life forms. And the circle makers were at the forefront. The human circle makers were at the forefront, going out there in the middle of the night. They've told me they've encountered shadow people out there. Small triangular craft, maybe 6 feet by 6 feet, just before the age of drones. So the only thing I could conclude from that is that these crop circles were like strange attractors for paranormal phenomena. You know what I'm saying? Like, it works both ways. Yeah. You go out with this intention, you want to create a sacred and a magical shape, and you do it because your intention is correct and you get the angles right and the fractal proportions, and stuff shows up because we live in a multiverse. We live in a multiverse and it pulls it in, like that question about space-time. So space-time is not dead.
Well, I mean, that almost makes me think regarding this, that there are, how can I put it? The energy patterns, whether it's if I get this right with what you're saying, the energy patterns that are created, whether it's human or non-human, actually send that energy pattern up to space, almost like a signal therefore these orbs or these UFOs to come in and kind of copycat or follow up with this crop circle that's been human made. It's almost like a puzzle piece, like matching what you're doing.
Matching the frequency. Okay. Those circles must have a frequency. They have a diameter. They've got a shape. They've got a radius. They have to be creating a macroscopic frequency. It's not necessarily something that's audible, but, we know from cymatics that shapes create energy. We've all seen those videos where you project sound into a metal plate and you have the sand on top, and it turns into those very organized patterns, cymatics, as it's called. So those circles, they're huge. Some of them are as big as, football fields, football in the US, 300 feet across. They've got to be creating some sort of frequency. If it's not necessarily audible. And we know cryptids create frequencies too. I mean, I think this is the big lesson is, again, shapes create frequencies, and those frequencies have real physics effects, because again, that's what quantum mechanics tells us, is that everything's based on frequency and energy. And it's quantized too, by the way. It's not continuous. That's really why it's called quantum mechanics. And that it comes out in these packets and, photons. So to me, it's just the physics of shapes, and it creates frequencies. Now, what should be happening is it's creating a frequency, like a type of radio signal for other types of energy. We had a question about consciousness before. Maybe they're already in that space, but they're in a parallel reality. The way, I mean, my understanding of quantum mechanics says that's what you're getting. You only perceive one sliver of it, your, particular frequency, but the Schrodinger wave function describes a whole range of probabilities, right? And the description from Hugh Everett since the 50s is that those are real realities with really physical consequences. Is it possible that those shapes pull other types of energy in life out of the same space that was there, but in a parallel reality? That's my feeling about it. And what that would mean, Dave, is that the man-made circles are real. They're real in that they attract energy. Because what I've always said is things that are not real do not cause my camera batteries to drain in 5 seconds, like we've seen on The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Finally, we had a show that showed that. Well, we saw that in the crop circles. I have it on YouTube. If you look at my playlist, Crop Circle Weirdness, I took as many videos of that of people saying, what happened to my camera? It was just working. It had fully charged batteries. Seen this over and over again. Just stopped working, camera cruise. So those are real, electromagnetic effects of those shapes. And if those were man-made, then they're real to me. They're not the same as the UFO-made ones, which I think some of those were made that way, but the effects are still real. And Dave, isn't it normal for humans to learn these things? I mean, you pick them up, you imitate things. It's still real. Maybe there are hoaxers out there, but that's not the ones I met. These people were pretty serious and I would say well-intentioned. They wanted to create an energetically active space, and I think they were successful in doing that.
Let's get to a pair of audience questions here for you.
Sure.
Dr. Simeon Hein is our guest. The Doug Shelby is asking, why do you think it's primarily a UK phenomena?
The UK is a really interesting place. It has Stonehenge. It has lots of stone circles, which have their own energy. And we've done a lot of work with dowsing around those stone circles. It's also where a lot of people think that the inhabitants of Atlantis came onto shore thousands and thousands of years ago. It has that place. When you're there, it sort of feels, to me, a little different than North America. Maybe that's why the Celtic music feels like that too. Maybe it's why I'm attracted to it. It just feels a little different, like a different frequency, like a slightly different dimension. And it's a type of place where if you talk to the locals, they have no problem with ghosts and haunted sites. And even these topics, you talk to these type of topics we're talking about right now. If you talk to the average person down the street, they might think you were a little nuts, but not in the UK, not in my experience. They would sit down and think this was interesting and have very intelligent conversations about ghosts and, the effects of crop circles and all this. So there's something different about that area. It just feels like it's at a different frequency. And the circles seem a lot like the stone circles, which are all throughout Great Britain, into Scotland, Ireland. That whole area has these. So you already had these circular patterns. It seems like it just sort of fits that landscape.
Yeah. And, let's not be remiss. They are happening here in North America. They're happening in Montana, Idaho, Iowa, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Seem to get them up here in Canada. I mean, in a lot of farming communities, they are happening, except the farmers here tend to keep things a little bit more quiet.
They do. And the UK is smaller, so if something shows up there, someone's going to see it by the air, not too late into the morning. So,
have we seen a drop in people going out and making their own crop circles the far back that we get from the movie Signs? I know during the movie Signs, for about a year, 6 months to a year, there were many people going out into farmers' fields and sneaking in there and literally ruining plantations because they wanted to play a joke on the people around the community and maybe get their 15 minutes of fame on radio or media about a crop circle that had popped up. Do you see more like that happening or less?
Yeah, when Signs came out, that was a real high. I think that was around the height of crop circles. I think that's a good time frame to pick. I forget exactly when that was, around 2000, 99, something like that. So it does seem to have dropped off from that time. When we would go over to the UK back then, and I've been on many tours and I've led many tours over there, there would be tons of them. I mean, literally, you could see 4 or 5 within an hour of where we were in Marlborough, Wiltshire. They were just in the nearby fields. And more recently, you would have to drive a ways to see them. So there was a peak to it, but that doesn't mean that whole sort of idea is kind of disappearing. I mean, these things sort of change and morph over time. But there certainly was a time when there were tons of them. And that certainly was a lot of fun for us because we'd go over there. I mean, they were just appearing like just all the time and close by. Next to Silbury Hill and Knapp Hill and all these really famous sort of Neolithic sites that are really old compared for those of us in North America. These would be, earth mounds and things that were 10,000 years old. I mean, it's really hard to find something that's 10,000 years old in my neck of the woods in North America. So to go be around those ancient earth mounds and man-made earth structures that were some of them huge, like Silbury Hill. And then to have all these circles, some of them absolutely massive, showing up around that area. I mean, it just felt absolutely magical. And I don't think it's happening as much as it did back then. So I really feel lucky that I was able to be in those and walk around them. And they really do feel pretty cool. And if you don't think they felt pretty cool, your cameras and batteries did, because they weren't functioning that well after you've been in them.
Yep. Probably the forgotten souls, and we never seem to talk about this when it comes to crop circles, are the farmers. For a lot of farmers, losing that crop is expensive when you look at it in a farmer's field. I mean, if you see a 2-3 acre, 5 acre crop circle of corn or wheat that's absolutely laid down and destroyed, whether by humans or something else that's otherworldly, I mean, that's a big dip in these in the farmers' profits for the year that they may not be able to afford. I mean, what are the farmers saying about this?
Yeah, so there are different views from the farmers, and I think that's a good point. Some of them were okay with it, and they would put up a collection box and pull in hundreds of pounds, which we know more than the wheat would be worth. It's still something for them extra to do, but they could collect on it. It wasn't actually the crop circle that would damage the wheat. If you've seen them after a couple days through the phototropic effect, the wheat would start to stand up again. It's the people walking in it that would certainly damage that particular crop. And some of the farmers that we knew would just put up a collection box and have their kids man it during the day, and they could make a nice little profit off of that. But some of them were pretty hostile, and I've encountered those farmers too. And sometimes they'd come out with their shotguns and say, "Get off of my land." Keep in mind, though, that the land in the UK, for the most part, is leased from the Crown. It's not quite owned. And, there's different views on this. So I'm not going to say I condone vandalizing farmers' property. But I will be honest, I've made my share of circles over the years. And the vast majority of the time, we would pay the farmer. We'd find a farmer that was okay with us going out there. We would even do it in the daytime sometimes. But the interesting thing was, and we would pay them more than the wheat was worth. Sometimes people didn't believe we had made them, and we'd put up a sign saying it was man-made in some cases. We didn't want to fool people, but they wouldn't believe us. They would say, "Well, how did you make that swirl? And how did you do that?" And, we had some people that knew what they were doing. So I've made my share, I'll be honest, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed being out there until the wee hours of the morning, making those circles and watching the effects. And there were some strange experiences out there at 3 a.m. in those circles, guys. There's nothing quite like it. So it's a lot of fun. And I would suggest, if you have a chance to make crop circles, pay the farmer first, get permission, and go ahead. We found farmers in the U.S., Dave, in Washington State, near where I was. They were fine with it. They came out and helped us in some case make the circles. Why? Because they're curious. They're curious about it.
Simeon, you know what? If you want to stick around, we have time. All right. Well, we're going to stick around. Simeon Hein's going to return with us for the next half hour here on Spaced Out Radio. This is so much fun. We'll learn about it more questions. We'll get into some cryptids. Hour 3 was Dr. Simeon Hein. His new book, Dark Matter Monsters. It's an ebook. Can be found on Amazon right now. It just came out 2 days ago. Hour 3 of Spaced Out Radio is next. All right, we are clear. Iron Dogger, have you watched the video of a farmer holding a lynx by the scruff and lecturing it for eating chickens? Yes, I have seen that video, and I laughed at that video. So I know what you're talking about. Farmers are definitely a different breed of people, that's for sure. You know, that's not what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do. Not that. All right.
I think we're going to find that Bigfoot makes crop circles too.
Oh my God. Now I'm taking a break here. I'll be right back. Enjoy Dirty Filth here for a few minutes. I think I blew a breaker here. Does that look like it? Does not look like it.
Yes, be respectful of the guest. No, guys, I see that comment. I'm telling you the truth. I am absolutely telling you the truth. And if you don't believe me, I would just suggest that you take a look at Opening Minds, because I described these people and going out with them. I know this is hard to take. I didn't want to hear it. Do you want to know the truth? When I first heard that people had done it, I didn't believe it either, because there's so many other people that said it was impossible. I had to see it for myself, but it's my experience. That's all I'll say, of seeing people do it and learning these groups. And they're all cool people that you would have enjoyed talking to, who were interested in very cool topics and would have loved this. Maybe they watch the show too, even if they're not making them anymore. So. Let me just show you a couple of these while we're at it. This is one that we made called the number circle for Scott Flansburgh, who is the guy in the Guinness Book of World Records for being able to do math in his head. And he wanted a circle based on the number 9. And this is what we were able to put together, which was really quite a feat. Now, this is what the circle artist wanted it to look like. I don't want to shock any of you or make you feel angry. Honestly, this is what we were going to do, because the person that we were with could make these big ones and make them look really good. We weren't able to make it look like that in the end, because it just was it would have been too big, and we just didn't have enough time, even a couple days in the daytime. So we kind of scaled it back, and we called it the mathematical matrix. And we did this at Woodborough Hill in 2006. You can go look for it. A huge method. Now, this was commissioned, and we put up a sign saying, we've done this for Scott Flansburgh. The farmer has been paid. This is a math project, and people still didn't believe us. Let me show you something interesting while we're going. The Devil's Den formation. I love this formation. The people a long time ago called it the Devil's Den. It was a Celtic area. I mean, there wasn't anything devilish about it. Now, this particular circle, I saw knock out 3 sets of batteries within about 20 minutes. First, Masao Maki, who was a restaurateur. He had a sushi restaurant here in Boulder. I didn't meet him here. I met him in the UK, but he was also a neighbor. His camcorder stopped working. Our static meter stopped working. And again, I have this on the playlist of crop circle weirdness. People came in with a GPS device. You might have seen me show their video, and their GPS device just completely drained. It was completely full. Should have had 14 hours of battery life. So this shape, now this is what I'm talking about. You're having these nested circle shapes within a larger area. I say, guys, you can come up with your own explanation. It's creating a type of electromagnetic resonance. Something has to be affecting those batteries and cameras. This is the circle that I saw. I wrote about this in Opening Minds. This is the Cheryl circle. I saw people do this with my own eyes overnight. This is the first one I ever saw done at night. I was a little shocked too, like maybe you are, but they did a pretty good job. This was the Milk Hill Coke Snowflake. You've probably seen bigger pictures of this, which was really cool. And then there are the more stylized types that people have made. I mean, this was done in New Zealand. There's a camera crew there. They called this the Ant or something like this. This is done for a project. So it looks stylized because a Japanese film crew wanted this, and they did it for them. There's the film truck. The whole thing is filmed. So we've seen a lot of these different ones. These are a beautiful set of nested spirals at... this was at Woodborough Hill in, I think, 97. So they're just all types, and they're all really cool. And I just love the whole thing about it. But to me, to attract balls of light, guys, there's got to be some serious science involved to create balls of light to attract orbs. Think about it.
One second here. Here we go.
Yeah, sure.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to see you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Kibble. Kibble is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Now, normally at this time, we go over to the swamp and listen to our resident swamp dweller. We will get to him later on in the show, but we're having so much fun with Dr. Simeon Hein tonight. You know what? We're going to continue this until the bottom of the hour because we really haven't talked cryptids yet with him. He's got a brand new book out called Dark Matter Monsters. It's an ebook. Can be found on Amazon. It only came out a couple of days ago, so it's time to add to your library because it's a good one. You know, anything by Dr. Hein is good. So, Dr. Simeon Hein, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Thank you, Dave. It'll be out in soft cover soon. I'm still working on that. Different format than Kindle, so it takes a little more time. So.
Well, you said something right before the break that kind of just shook me a little bit. Bigfoot making crop circles?
Yeah. I'm being a little facetious about that, but I don't think the topics are that disconnected. And that was the big shock to me. Dave, I've been listening to your show for a while, and I got into this a little more seriously on a guy named Matthew Hines here in the U.S. who has a show called Encounters USA. He asked me a couple questions about cryptids on his show a couple of years ago. Dogman. I knew nothing about these topics, and I had very little experience with Bigfoot witnesses, though I had talked to them over the years at UFO conferences and people in the Rocky Mountain region had told me there's but it didn't quite click for me until I started hearing about the stories of battery and camera failure around Bigfoot, time-space distortion, and especially balls of light. That's, a light went out in my head when I heard that people they would go out to look for Bigfoot and they would see orbs. So there had to be a connection back to crop circles, where I've seen orbs near crop circles briefly, and they've been seen around UFO sightings and cryptids. So in my mind, I started looking into this, and why would the cold fusion LENR researchers say that cold fusion LENR is simply a type of micro ball lightning? So I started looking into ball lightning, and what you realize when you study all these topics is this is all a type of organization of dark matter. We're around dark matter all the time. There's 10 particles of dark matter for every 1 particle of physical matter that we see physically in the universe. So there's a lot of dark matter around, and some of that dark matter is actually streaming around us from the original cosmic background radiation. It's called relic neutrinos, and you can look it up. This is not anything that's fringe. This is accepted science. Relic neutrinos, they have a wavelength. They're slow, but they have a wavelength and a size that interacts with biology. And so what I started thinking is, are crop circle shapes, because they're spiraled around and fractal, are they reorganizing dark matter that's coming through the Earth from outer space, literally? And if you look at what causes ball lightning and so forth, it seems to be related to some interaction with these neutrinos and, really dense clusters of charged particles that form their own coherent matter. And so, and I'm open to other points of view, but this is what I think is going on. If you're seeing this around cryptids, ball lightning, orbs, space-time distortions, all of what witnesses report, even loss of consciousness temporarily, and all these sort of weird paranormal phenomena, this must be the same phenomena we're seeing around crop circles and other sorts of non-ordinary electromagnetic activity. In other words, these must be life forms that are based in part on dark matter. And this is why they're invisible part of the time, and why they have superpowers, because they're tapping into the quantum vacuum space. And again, these are my ideas, and you can read about it in Dark Matter Monsters. But I think all the science is there to make a very good argument that they're organizing and tapped into the quantum vacuum field in a way that allows them to morph, shapeshift, move through space-time. People talk about seeing a Sasquatch and it's here and then it's behind them and it's doing this. Not just the fact that they're huge and fast and seem like bodybuilders in a fur coat. They seem to actually move around or even glide. How could something that big glide over a forest? You hear witnesses say this over and over again. They seem like they were gliding over the forest. Those are non-ordinary electromagnetic effects that I think are directly related to how our planet interacts with dark matter. I mean, it's a big topic and we can talk about it another time, but the researchers in these phenomena from Japan and former Soviet Union have shown that these neutrinos that come from the cosmic background radiation, they're lensed by gravitational objects, by planets, by galaxies and shapes. And I just don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to think that they're life forms. If dark matter is, the vast majority of matter on the planet, there could be life forms that are based on dark matter, and they would have powers and abilities that we as humans don't have yet or haven't figured out how to do.
Okay, I know a lot of people in the Bigfoot world, my buddies included, who have seen things, and it always seems to be a blue orb or a white orb. Rarely do you hear of orange or red or yellow or purple, but it always seems to be blue or white for the most part. Have you heard of this as well?
Oh, yeah. Because ball lightning can take every color in the rainbow. It depends on its frequency again. It depends what the particular frequency of that coherent matter is. And sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's red. It can be more orangey and yellowish. And the interesting thing about these orbs is if you're touched by one, if you come in contact with one, they can be cool to the touch. They're not literally burning anything. I mean, I think it's very important for people to understand it. This is literally not a fireball. It's not burning. It can go through a wall. It can go through a fuselage of an aircraft. And it's literally not burning. What we're talking about is a different type of self-organization of matter where it can actually transmute the material it comes in contact with. And this is a very important point. A lot of people think of cold fusion, where is free energy? Free energy source, new energy source. It's a good question, but the challenge of it is because it's self-organized quantum material, it literally changes matter as it goes through it, and it destroys the reactor that it's in. It's very hard to contain orbs, ball lightning, assuming that it's a basically similar, it's sort of a common phenomena based on the same phenomena, coherent matter. So it's going to have different colors, Dave, based on the frequency that it's at and sort of, its organization. It does have different colors, and it can seem very lifelike. And I'm not trying to explain it away as saying that these are not some sort of type of consciousness or that some life form hasn't figured out how to tap into ball lightning frequencies, because they seem very lifelike if you listen to witness descriptions. But we know from ball lightning, it's so freaking sensitive. It's following these electromagnetic gradients that it can actually seem like it's playing with you. Witnesses say it felt like it was alive. They ran away from it. It can seem like that because it's just so sensitive to any slight change in electromagnetic charges in the environment it's in. That's why it follows paths, goes down the aisle of an aircraft and so forth. It's a whole different, it's not ordinary matter. It's in a quantum coherent state. It's very sensitive, very sensitive.
I am a firm believer that there is something special and potentially supernatural with Sasquatch and a lot of these cryptid creatures. This ball lightning, if that indeed is what it is, how does that react to a creature that, can seem to all of a sudden have its footprint stop in the middle of the snow or a mud pack in a field and there's nothing else that we see, or the where 1 minute it's there, the next minute it isn't, or these predator type of illusions where let's take Dr. Bruce Maccabee's wife, where she was hunting one day, and that was on Missing 411 Hunters by David Politis. And all of a sudden, this predator type being is in a tree right beside her. I mean, how do we look at the phenomena as it reacts differently around different people, different areas?
Dave, it's a great question. I mean, this is something that I spend a good part of my time thinking about. I do not have a total grasp of what's going on here. We're dealing with something that is extremely complex. It can take a variety of forms. It can look like that saran wrap type of life that was it Ellen Maccabee? Was that her name in 411 Missing?
Yeah, Sandra, I believe.
Yeah. So great story. I love the way Politis put that together. And, she's in that deer stand and she sees something that looks like saran wrap, but with arms moving. So these creatures must be more evolved than we are. We started the show tonight talking about RV, and we've taken classes. I've taken classes in RV. We have to relearn how to do this. I've seen PK demonstrations of people who could take a Coke bottle and turn it into a liquid and twist it. And there's photos of that in Dark Matter Monsters. I saw a guy when I was teaching RV in Japan. Some of my students said, you have to see this guy near Nagasaki who can do PK. I was shocked by what is PK? Psychokinesis, literally affecting physical objects at a distance without touching them, literally twisting glass and metal in like a liquid. And so let's say that Bigfoot are natural PK masters. I mean, that they know how to do this, that they're more evolved than we are. They've been around longer. I'm talking hypothetically. Is it really out of the realm of probability that there's life forms that figured out how to do this, how to become invisible because it suits them in terms of how they live and how they hunt, that there's an evolutionary advantage to being invisible? And so this is why it looks like a predator, because it's a type of skill that a predator would find to be advantageous.
Right.
And honestly, when I'm out in the woods now, I'm looking for saran wrap. No, I'm looking for these saran wrap type creatures, which David Politis has described many times, that he reads these letters in his videos in the beginning, and people say, I saw that as a kid. Other podcasters have talked about policemen seeing something that looked like a saran wrap turn into a Bigfoot. So look, we're dealing with life forms that know how to naturally do PK-like stuff to change matter, morph it. This is, Dave, this is very hard for us to accept. We're convinced we're the apex predator on the planet. I have debates with people like this on some of these websites where they say, we're the apex predator. We can shoot the wolves. We're the apex. We can do whatever we want here. Well, how do you know you're the apex predator? If the real apex predator wouldn't even make itself known most of the time, and it'd be picking things off without them even knowing that you were in its sights, right? That's an apex predator. So this is hard for our egos to accept, that there's other life forms on the planet that are more evolved than we are, more intelligent in some ways, at least in terms of street smarts, and they're out there and they can see you and you can't see them. I think for most people, that's just really hard to accept. I even talked to a friend recently who had this type of encounter in Arizona, and she didn't even tell me about it till this week. And we had talked about this while I was writing the book 6 months ago, and she went back to where their vacation cottage was in Arizona, and she said, I thought those stick structures were just Boy Scouts building little teepees, and that those weird sounds at night, you know, maybe there was some construction going on in the forest, and that weird wet dog smell, you know, it had to be just deer. And she put it all together, and she said, you were telling me about this when we talked, and I didn't take it seriously till I started looking around. And so it's real. I can tell you from just talking with her this week, it's very hard to accept that you're not in control and there's something bigger and really good at what it does out there. I just think it's collective ego. We don't want it to be true. But those people who listen to the show, we're used to this. But I mean, the average person it's Boy Scouts, right? Making those tree structures.
You know what? I have yet to run into a tree structure. You know,
Okay.
the closest thing that we ran into was me and my buddies this year. We found a 13-inch print, and it was absolutely phenomenal. The sad part about it is in the casting, the toes didn't come out very well. But the interesting part about it was, in a straight line, there were 3 giant X's, or 2 giant X's and 1 tiny one. And the fact that they were all in a straight line was trippy.
This witness who I talked to just a couple days ago, who I've known for 2 decades, who just realized this was happening around their vacation place in rural mountainous part of Arizona. Do you know what she said she thought it could be? An antenna structure that they can detect if there's something moving in that area. And that if you go up and start interacting with it, they can start picking up on you. I said, well, that makes a lot of sense. It's not just like a marker. It's like some sort of resonant structure, and they can pick up what's going on, kind of like some sort of antenna. I mean, I thought that was kind of a cool idea. So maybe that's what these are. I mean, it's just another possibility.
Well, I mean, it was funny because we put a gifting site right by the middle X, and you can actually see when you're up close, you can see that on the one part, the tree is actually interwoven between 2 other trees, which is interesting. And then my buddy Paul and I, we call him the lip blade around here. We walked about 40, 50 meters behind, and we found this small X that was maybe 2, 8, 10-foot trees put together. Now, the funny part about it is the one was interwoven, and we could not find the stump for that one, which made it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But it was when we came out of the forest, going back to the logging road to go to our vehicle, and back to where our vehicle was parked right across from where the footprints were drying. And Paul said, "Oh my God." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Look at that." And he points right across the road, about 75 feet, 100 feet off the road, right in front of us, 2 50-foot trees that had been put in an X across the road.
Yeah.
Which is right by a giant marsh. And when we looked at it, we were like, this is unbelievable. All three of these are in a straight line.
Yeah. So the thing is, Dave, if you weren't sensitive to this topic, you could easily ignore that, right? You could just go by it. And it's just like my friend, she said they were around the whole time and I never saw it until we had a conversation about what these structures look like. It's fascinating. It's fascinating to know that there's another type of life form, creature, human, whatever you think it is. I don't think it's an undiscovered ape. I'm not going to go with that one. I'm going to go with paranormal human on this one. Okay. Or something in that direction. I mean, even for myself, this is a relatively new topic, even being involved with these fields, that there's something else around us and you could go by it and you won't even see it. As someone said in the comments here, very good at camouflage. We know people, Carter Bouchard, you've had him on the show, bushes that are walking along and then they're gone the next day and they weren't a bush. In doing research for this, I talked to people that have had that experience, new people where it said it's a weird looking bush and then it gets up and walks away. It could be right around you. You wouldn't even know. It looks like a tree stump, looks like a boulder. It's almost hard to imagine, but this seems to be what's going on.
I apologize about, we got 3 minutes left and I apologize.
Yes, it's been a lot of fun.
We're not going to get to any more questions tonight, but I do want to ask you one strange thing because I've only ever heard John Tenney talk about this. Have you ever looked into the moving trees where you set up a webcam or a bush camera, and in the photographs or video, one moment the trees are there, and then in the next moment they've moved over. The camera hasn't moved, but the tree has moved over a few inches and or disappeared, and then in the next few frames, it's back again. Have you ever looked into that phenomena of the moving trees?
They must be Ents. J.R.R. Tolkien must have knew what he was talking about. In Middle Earth, where you had the trees that walk around, the Ents. I mean, I know, Dave, I haven't encountered this, and I would love to see some of the evidence for it. I mean, your eyes, your whole perceptual system is not set up for this. This is why you don't see the cryptids out there. You're not looking for them, and you're not sensitized to it. Maybe if you were a Native American, you would be paying attention. I mean, I certainly wasn't brought up, and I've spent a lot of time out in the woods, hiking, backpacking by myself, Dave, throughout the West. I've never seen any of this. I haven't seen a tree structure for myself yet, but maybe that I'm sensitized to it now from in the past few years from your show and others, that I might see it now, but I haven't actually experienced it. So yeah, there could be more going on out there than we're just aware of.
Well, we got to get you up here. We got to get you up here because the area where we found our prints, it is a highway, not of just Sasquatch, but I mean, there's bears, there's deer. One of the impressive moments I had this summer, I have to say this to you, was when we were casting that print. My buddy Paul is casting, and I said to Paul, I'm looking right behind Paul or in front of Paul, and I'm like, dude, there is something here. I feel like we are being watched. Like every hair on my body was standing up. And he goes, and so he picks his head up towards me, and I turn and look. I said, it's something behind me. Turn and look, man. And about 80 feet behind me, a deer had snuck up on us.
Yeah.
And thankfully a deer. You know what I'm saying? It could have been much worse, but you really have to learn to pay attention in the forest. In this area where we tested, it's got wolves, it's got very big moose, a lot of cats, coyotes, and I'm talking house cats here, but we got to get you up here to the highway, man. And
and Dave, some of the comments here, people are saying that they really think those are Ents and they're real, just like cryptids. So that would be another mind-blowing thing to learn about. Could be.
Well, let's have you on in a couple of months and we'll talk about
thanks.
that.
And thanks for the invitation. I appreciate it. I'd love to come up and visit sometime. So let's do it.
Absolutely. Dr. Simeon Hein, everyone. His new book, Dark Matter Monsters. It can be found on Amazon along with his other books. What an awesome show. It is in ebook right now. Later on in a few months, you can get the hard copy. which is going to be awesome. We're going to make sure, Dirty Filth, we're going to make sure that we get Dr. Hein back with before the end of summer. Definitely, for sure. Coming up next, we're going to head to the swamp. Our resident swamp dweller is back. We'll hit Shirky Poo's news and whatever else we can fill in. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this.
Thanks, guys, and rock on.
All right, buddy. I appreciate you, Simeon. You're one of the
Thank
best
you,
out
Dave.
there. You really are. And I will get my my team to reach out to you. We'll get you back on before the end of summer.
Thanks. And one more thing I just want to tell you about that's going to be fun. I am participating in the Sasquatch's Outposts Bigfoot Adventure Weekend in the Bailey area. At the end of July, we're going to go out for 3 days, 2 nights in areas that Sasquatch has been a lot and see what we see with night scopes and so forth. So we'll be able to report on that.
Good. Yeah. I gotta hit up my Dogman area here. I've been staying away from it on purpose.
Yeah,
but
I don't blame you.
I gotta try and get up there. I've had this inkling that I have to do it, and it scares me to think about it, but I have to.
We got to figure this out, guys. We got to figure this out. If we don't do it, who's going to figure it out? We have to know what we're dealing with here. So
absolutely, Doctor.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dr. Simeon Hein. How awesome is he, people? How awesome is he? We're going to try and, you know what? We're definitely going to work on getting him on here every couple of months. He's the type of person we need to have on here every 2, 3, 4 months just to give us some information on these. You know, he's amazing. It's hard to not understand how amazing he is, and just blown away by him all the time. Thank you, Noble Patrick, for the super chat. Thank you to Commonwealth Stephen for the super chat. My fellow Canucks, YJ, Vaughn, Phil, and Ken for the super chats, and Thomas Fessler as well. And I want to say I apologize to, there was a few questions there. Paul Rouleau, welcome to SOR chat. There was a few questions I didn't get to tonight. I do apologize, guys. When we have him back on, remind me of your questions. I will get to them. Dave doesn't need an AR-15. Dave just needs to be able to stab his buddy Mark in the leg, so that way Mark can't run, and that way Dave is going to be just a tad faster than Mark. Dogman or Sasquatch will do their thing with Mark, and I get away scot-free. That's the way it's going to work, Doug Shelby. The Doug Shelby. Yeah. Yeah. Blame Luscious Jules tonight for this amazing interview with Dr. Simeon Hein. Blame her. It's all Jules' fault. Thanks, Jules, for a wonderful show. Okay. Appreciate you. Love you, dear. Delta Tester Cat, what's going on? Good evening. Excuse me. Data derivations. I'm not getting myself any more guitars. I'm going to buy my son another guitar, though. That I am going to do. I'm debating on getting him another Jackson because that's what he's used to, or getting him a Les Paul Studio because he's not ready for a standard or a custom yet, or even a traditional. The caption says, "Beautiful, aren't they?" As we have a cat sitting on a fence, the alien staring up at the black triangle and the stars, Sasquatch hiding over in the bushes, and a spider web covering up a broken window. Amazing. Dirty Filth is so talented. It's very understandable why Brandon Fugel, owner of Skinwalker Ranch, literally just bought a bunch of his books that'll be spread all over, you know. I mean, Brandon Fugel is a giant fan of Dirty Filth's art. And kudos to Dirty Filth for his amazing talent and people like Brandon noticing. Get him a Schecter. Yeah, I like Schecters.
It's a Schecter.
Do you mind? I'm trying to give you a compliment here, Dirty Filth. Do you mind? Yeah. Yeah. You think the guy would have a little bit more class than hopping in on the show like that when you're giving him a compliment? Love you, Dirty Filth. You're amazing, buddy.
Well, you wrote a nice piece of my book for me, and that's beautiful. Thank you so much.
I still got to buy your book, dude. I still got to buy it. Hold on here. Here we go, guys. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, reading up on Shirky Poo's Newswire. Check out our swag as well. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. And just like that, we're going to get into the swamp. Let us go to Mr. Swamp Dweller for another spooky story.
Hi, Spaced Out Radio listeners. This is Swamp Dweller. It's time for your nightly dose of spookiness on the show. If you have an interesting encounter or a spooky story that you would like to share, be sure to submit them in at swampdweller.net. You can also find our YouTube channel at youtube.com/swampdwellerreads. Now, let's chill out, relax, and together, let's enter the swamp. Hello, Swamp Dweller. It's Vince again. I hadn't planned to write you again, but after the positive reviews and my friends continuing to encourage me, I decided to write you again. I'm going to share with you and your viewers of one of the most bizarre experiences I've had while hunting these creatures. I know my stories are a bit different than the usual stories you receive, but I hope you still enjoy it. So this takes place a few years after the previous story I sent in. I had been on a few successful hunts and had learned a decent amount about these things. I'd see a comment that called them gugway, so I will use that term from here on out. It's nice to have a name to these things regardless if it's right or not. So I had killed a few of these gugway, but hadn't seen any in a few months. I believed I had run them out of the area and didn't really know how to find them again. I had the idea to use the BFRO website to look up sightings that may...
Let's restart that. We had a little snafu there. Here we go.
Hello, Swamp Dweller. It's Vince again. I hadn't planned to write you again, but after the positive reviews and my friends continuing to encourage me, I decided to write you again. I'm going to share with you and your viewers of one of the most bizarre experiences I've had while hunting these creatures. I know my stories are a bit different than the usual stories you receive, but I hope you still enjoy it. So this takes place a few years after the previous story I sent in. I had been on a few successful hunts and had learned a decent amount about these things. I'd see a comment that called them gugway, so I will use that term from here on out. It's nice to have a name to these things regardless if it's right or not. So I had killed a few of these gugway, but hadn't seen any in a few months. I believed I had run them out of the area and didn't really know how to find them again. I had the idea to use the BFRO website to look up sightings that may match the behavior of the gugway versus a regular Bigfoot. After searching for I don't even remember how long, I finally found a sighting from around Connor, Montana. about a shorter Bigfoot climbing into a tree. Finally, I thought. It made sense to me that the Gugway would travel further north away from the area that I was in. I called my boss saying I was sick and I needed a few days off, packed my gear, and took off for Montana. It wasn't an overly long drive, and I was in Connor by the end of the day. I knew by then that they moved primarily at night and did not want to be making my way into the mountains in the dark where they had the advantage. So I stayed in my car that night and set off in the morning to the area of the sighting. It was around mid-May, so the weather was fairly nice, and I enjoyed the hike into the backcountry. I made it to the area by noon and had begun scouting for any signs. I learned to look for subtle things like branches broken too high up to be from an elk or a moose, or scratches in the bark too high up to be a bear. I wasn't having any luck finding anything and spent the next few days roaming the valleys, looking for anything and spending the nights up on the ridges out of the trees. Being May, I didn't need to build a fire, so I would sit up at night looking down into the valley with my thermal scope, while wrapped in an insulated blanket to hide my shape. One night I saw a sow grizzly with 2 of her cubs below me into the valley. I remember thinking to myself that the odds of the Gugway, who I believed to be an apex predator, and a grizzly, who I knew was an apex predator, being in the same area was extremely slim, and decided to move the next valley over the following day. As they disappeared into the trees and out of view, I scanned back to my left and saw a flash of orange in the trees about 300 yards below me. I focused on the area but couldn't find what it was again. I scanned right back in the direction of the grizzly and could see the mother had come back where I could see her, and she was standing up, sniffing the air, staring in the direction where I had seen the flash. The mother bear had to be close to 7 feet herself, and was at least 600 to 700 pounds easily. I thought to myself that there is absolutely no way that a Gugway was going to try this bear. As I had that thought, I scanned back to the left and could see between the swaying of the trees and their cool blue branches that a fire-red heat signature was showing through. It was roughly 20 feet up the tree and 50 yards from the mother bear. Was I about to see this? I remember thinking. I scanned back to the bear, and she was now facing the opposite direction. I looked that way again. I saw red showing from between branches in that direction as well. There were 2 Gugway on either side of the bear. They were hunting her or her cubs. Back to the bear, I could see she was still standing, but both cubs were now at her side, and she was looking back and forth. I was in shock at this point. I had my suspicions about how they hunted, but this was showing an unnerving level of confidence and intelligence. The Gugway, to the bear's right, began screaming in a blood-curdling way that made me want to drop my rifle and cover my ears. But I stayed on the scope. The bear reacted exactly how you would think and turned to its right, dropped to all fours, and positioned itself between the Gugway and its cubs. Something told me to scan left, and I could see the Gugway in that direction moving from tree to tree closer to the bear and its cubs until it was only a few trees away. It was still 15 feet up the tree, and Gugway on the right was shaking the tree it was in to distract the mother bear. The closer Gugway dropped out of the tree onto the ground and tried to grab one of the cubs, but the sow was too fast. It reacted before the Gugway could react. The bear and the Gugway were fighting when the second Gugway dropped from the tree and charged over, hitting the bear from behind. She turned to it and was about to stand when the first Gugway jumped back onto it. It was a 2-on-1 fight, and the bear couldn't focus on one without the other attacking it. I was frozen in place watching the mother bear try to fight off the 2 Gugway and protect her cubs. She was trying her best but couldn't seem to stay on one long enough before the other made an attack on her and tried for her cubs. It was heartbreaking to watch. Finally, something in me snapped awake, and I realized that this bear wasn't all that different from me. If I had gotten to my daughter that day, I would have fought just as hard as she is now. In a weird way, I was watching what would happen to this bear. This filled me with an intense sadness, and that was almost immediately replaced with rage. I wouldn't sit by and watch what happened to me happen to this bear. Some people would argue that what I was watching was just nature, but these Gugway are not part of the natural order. I don't know exactly what they are or what part they play, but I do know it's not natural. I put my crosshairs on the Gugway, calculated it was about 325 yards, and sent a round into its center mass. The loud shot echoed over the valley, and I could see it lurch back from the hit. I pulled the trigger again and sent another round into its chest, 2 for 2. The other Gugway must have noticed its partner was hurt and made the fatal mistake of taking its eye off the bear. Now it was 1-on-1, and the mother bear was going to make this Gugway pay for attacking its cubs. The enraged mother never lost focus or even reacted to my shots, and as the Gugway shifted its focus to its partner, the bear was on it. She had it on the ground and was thrashing it back and forth before it pushed itself away and managed to get back onto its feet. It looked to be the same height as the bear, and I could tell the bear had done some damage by its stance. The mother bear charged it again and the Gugway tried to run to a tree, but the bear was too fast. I watched as the bear hit it from behind, and as soon as the Gugway was on the ground, the bear had attacked the back of its neck, in her mouth, and had began to shake it with more violence than I had believed was even possible. It became clear to me that when one-on-one with a grizzly, it could get the best of these things easily, which made sense why they stayed further south away from the grizzly's range. I watched the grizzly finish off the Gugway, and then go investigate the one I had shot. I could tell it was still alive, and obviously, so could the bear. The Gugway didn't stay alive much longer. Once the mother bear was satisfied that the two Gugway were no longer a threat, she retreated into the dense forest with her two cubs. My adrenaline was coming down at that point, and I was becoming incredibly tired. I wanted desperately to look closer at the Gugway, but had no idea where the bear had gone and had no intention of becoming the next target of her protective instincts. I decided I would crawl into my tent and investigate in the morning. I awoke not long after daybreak and looked where the Gugway should have been, but they were gone. I don't think the bear came back and dragged them off, and I know they were dead, so there must have been another one that took them away, just like the others I had killed. From my experience, once one was killed, the others in the area would leave, and with two being killed in one night, I was sure if there were others, they were long gone, so I decided to call it quits in that area. I was out of that area and back home by the next day, and I'll never forget that night. Watching the mother grizzly fight made me realize that the natural world had already been fighting back against these things long before I arrived, and it would be fighting long after I have stopped. And I believe that the natural world would win. I just hope I'm still here to watch the last Gugway die. Whether it's by my rifle or by a grizzly's bite, both are fine by me.
And we say thank you to our resident swamp dweller for coming on in for another spooky story. Yeah, the Gugways. We've heard Super Duke from World Bigfoot Radio talk about their fierceness, and they don't really care what they're killing as long as they are killing something. Yeah, business is good in the forest for the Gugways right now, especially going into summertime, people hiking and their dogs wandering around. Yeah, that's just the way it goes. Swamp Dweller can be found at youtube.com/Swamp Dweller Reads, as we say thank you to him who has many, many thousands of stories on his channel over the years. The last 7 years he's been together producing these stories, and people on camera could see a moth flying around. I hate those little moths. I really do. Really, really do. But you know what? We appreciate the Swamp Dweller. Go hit subscribe on his channel. We'd really appreciate it. We got a few minutes here. We got to get going here before we get to Shirky Poo's news. And earlier tonight, and this is a little bit of a different show because, you know, usually we have the UFO report, but our UFO report people tonight were a little tied up, little partying, little extravaganza. You know how it goes. But nonetheless, we still got a show to do. So I was listening earlier tonight on YouTube to Disclosure Tonight with Thomas Fessler, good supporter of this show. And he brought up a good point. Are we ready for the alien talk? And he quoted a private conversation with Sean Cahill on a different podcast. Sean Cahill, a very good friend of this show, right-hand person to Lou Elizondo. And Sean said something very, very cryptic. And I'm actually going to call him about this because this is the behind-the-scenes stuff that we need to talk about a little bit. And Sean said, you know, we're within minutes of having the conversation about extraterrestrials. We're like Iron Maiden with this. 2 minutes to midnight. That's where we are. We're 2 minutes to midnight before the ET conversation starts up. So I want to know through comments in our chat room on YouTube tonight, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about seeing this go to the next level? Are people ready for that next level? There's a lot of stuff going on regarding this, people. A lot of stuff. All right. As we prepare for any sort of disclosure that could be happening right around the corner. Right? It's right around the corner. And I thought Thomas did a great job breaking it down. I highly suggest you head over to Thomas Fessler with 2 S's, Disclosure Tonight. Go to his channel. Listen to this part of his show from earlier today. And you're really, really going to be blown away. Are you ready for that ET conversation? Not with your friends, not on podcasts or radio shows or YouTube channels. Are you ready for government officials to start talking about aliens? Looking at Mennonite Abe in the chat room, he says, I'm ready for the next step, Dave. The human race needs to grow up. Aliens are on our doorstep and maybe can help us go that way. Overbuild Automotive. I could care less, really. All right. President Zeddy, you killed your ancestor according to Darwin. Let's see. Who else do we have here? YJ, ready or not, the truth is the only way out of the mess we're in. Chris Teen says, we're born ready. I don't know about you, but I'm more Lady Gaga because I was born this way. Felipe, can't wait for it to happen. I've been waiting for that conversation for decades. Many of us have, my friend. Lunar Sparkles Tina, I'd rather see them charged with war crimes. Yes, but we're talking aliens here. Let's see, who else do we have? Holly says, I saw the movie Dark Skies. It better not be ending up with them damn grays. Let's see here. Tombstone's ready. Joe asks, will there be a bounty on the aliens? Asking for a friend. Our good friend Joe, he's been listening to us for 7 years. 7 years. Best hair of all of our listeners. No offense to the other ones. But he's an ET contactee. Him and the Greys don't get along. He's got himself a new Rottweiler, a puppy named Lola, who's ready to rip the Greys apart. Joe, you just got to admit it, man. You just got to admit it. All right, let's get to Shirky Poo's news, shall we? Let's fire it up.
What time is it?
It's time for Shirky Poo's news!
All right, let's get over to Shirky Poo's news, shall we? You know, there's golf and then there's golf. An alligator was caught on camera approaching a group of golfers on a Florida course while a member of the party nonchalantly decided to step up to his ball and take a shot. The video posted on Facebook shows Michael West lining up to take his shot at the Heritage Landing Golf and Country Club in Punta Gorda while ignoring the alligator approaching him from the rear. I was lining up my shot for about 125 yards out to the pin. I knew he was coming up diagonally behind me, West said. The rest of West's party laughed after he took the shot with the gator only about 15 feet away. Hey, man, we got to force him. We're full. We're good, one of the golfers has said, hearing being said on the video. This guy decided he just wants to join. West said the alligator most likely was just curious while walking around. He was very likely headed to a bigger lake across the fairway. He was just going about his business. It was great. I get to have a dinosaur watch me play. Moving on here. Here's an interesting one. We've all heard of people going to great lengths to try and get a job, but this one might take the cake. A Central Florida man was booked after police said he posed as a Walt Disney World cast member and took an R2-D2 droid in the hopes that he'd get a job as a security guard. 44-year-old David Proudfoot from Kissimmee is facing a grand theft charge and a charge of obstruction by false information, according to the arrest affidavit. It happened at the Swan Reserve Hotel. The Orange County Sheriff's Office said on May 31st, deputies were called by Disney security. When they arrived, they made contact with Proudfoot, who they say was wearing beige work pants, an orange work vest, and a Disney name tag. He reportedly identified himself as David Rogers at first and said he worked in the receiving division of the Yacht Club Resort. Proudfoot reportedly drew suspicion when he looked confused while trying to move the droid on a cart. Yeah, that's never any good. Never any good. A New York man's triumphant burp echoed throughout a building after he set a Guinness World Record by chugging a liter of Mountain Dew in 6.8 seconds. Eric Badlands Booker of Long Island did the deed on YouTube before the big belch, but he wasn't done. Booker then downed a liter of tomato sauce in 18.45 seconds to set another world record. And down in Australia, there are screw-ups and then there are epic screw-ups. An Australian mayor's alleged exploits belong in the latter category. Redland City Mayor Karen Williams admitted to drinking several glasses of wine before crashing her car into a tree last week. What made it worse was the crash happened just an hour after Williams had met with the families of drunk driving victims. The country has one of the world's highest rates of car accidents caused by drunk driving, behind only the U.S., Canada, South Africa. Alcohol consumption is the key factor in 30% of road accident deaths in Australia. So she says, I may have made a serious error in judgment and was deeply regretful after her drunk driving crash. She has stepped down from the Brisbane Olympics 2032 board, but resisted calls for her resignation of mayor and was not charged. Shortly before the accident, Williams had declared, we need to clean up drunk driving. Oh, the procrastination, the hypocrisy, and everything that goes along with it. It's so Trudeau-esque. So Trudeau-esque. I want to say a big thank you to Shirky Poo for the news tonight. Big thank you, of course, to Swamp Dweller for another wonderful story. Make sure you go over to his channel and hit that subscribe button on YouTube because it is absolutely wonderful. And to Dr. Simeon Hein for staying late with us and talking all things woo, because that's what we do around here at the mighty SOR. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio.
I know you're out there somewhere.
Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends,
We're watching.
we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home.
I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Yes, the Woo Train has stopped for tonight. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. That's a good show. That's a very, very strong show tonight. We had a good one. Oh, take those off. Mm-hmm. All right, what are we doing here? So this week, just to set you guys up, even though I'm gone, we're still going to be doing shows. And you're going to have Grant host on the 7th, which is Thursday. Big Willie's going to host on the 8th, then the weekend shows. And then on the, that's the 9th and 10th. On the 11th, Grant will be back for the 11th. And then on the 12th, Jessica Jones is going to host. Now, all of those shows will likely only be 2 hours. The hosts will decide whether it's 3. They're going via weekend rules on that. So whatever they feel comfortable with, but you're going to get a minimum of 2 hours, which is really cool. And we really appreciate that. But I will be back on Wednesday night next week for Science Bob and Friends. So I am off. For those who don't know, I am off for the MUFON Symposium in Denver, Colorado. That I leave because I got to drive down. I got a real early flight Friday morning, so I'm driving down Thursday during the day. I'm going to go see my mom, who is pretty ill right now, and bringing my son down there as well. And then I'm going to get up in the morning, head to Vancouver International Airport, fly out to Denver that day. And on Friday morning, take in the MUFON festivities. And then Tim Senor will also be there as well. And him and I are going to meet up, which is really cool because I haven't met him before. Personally, face-to-face, that is. And then him and I are going to, on Sunday evening, him and I are going to be flying to an hour's flight or an hour 10 flight to Las Vegas because I'm meeting up with someone there and having a private conversation about Area 51. This is somebody who I can't give much detail other than that, but this is somebody who I know, and you guys do not know him. It's not Bob Lazar or anybody like that. If I was meeting with Lazar, oh, hell yeah, I would let you guys in on a heartbeat on that. But no, it's somebody different who just wants to go over some information with me, and I'm very much looking forward to that. It's sometimes in this is where this business gets really, really cool, because sometimes there are certain conversations that you cannot have over the telephone, and this is one of them. And I really wanted to make this conversation happen, so we've made it happen. So very much looking forward to it. And we go from there. That's right, Evan. Tipping them off. Tipping off the spooks. Yeah. I wish I was going to meet Bumblefoot in Vegas. I could use a good concert right about now. Also, we are still looking for someone to join our team regarding websites. So if you know anybody who is if you know anybody who knows how to run websites, please let me know. because we are looking for somebody to join our team to kind of help us with our website. Holly, did this person contact you first? No, but I can't get into specifics. I cannot get into specifics about that. And hey, it might be a big waste of time taking a chance, but hey, it's Vegas. That's what you do, right? It's totally what you do. You take a chance. It will pay some, Evan, but not enough to live on. Number 2 or 3? 3. Well, I'm hoping to come back with some pretty awesome stories. That's the goal. But I'm going to tell you right now, my word to this person is going to be good. That if this person says, hey, I don't want you talking about that on the air, I'm not going to talk about it. Sad but true. But you have to be good with your contacts, right? Because you never know when you're going to need them. Oh, I got a cough candy stuck in my teeth, between my teeth and gums. Way in the back. Oh, there we go. Do-do-do-do-do. 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 Hey, Typical Watch, how you doing? But nonetheless, I just wanted you guys to know that there's going to be great programming right through for all of you. So, don't forget, after the show, guys, if you haven't already, give us a thumbs up, thumbs down, and give us a comment after we stop the show. We're really trying hard to figure out these damn algorithms that YouTube has. So, could use your help. The thumbs up, the thumbs downs, the comments after the show. Those really, really help us. So if you could be so generous to do that for us, we would greatly appreciate it. My best friend, how are you? Lauren Hurd, how are you? Welcome to SOR Chat. Lauren doesn't say anything until, what's that show called? Stranger Things. I haven't seen it. I've never seen Stranger Things. Don't even know what it's about. Never seen Star Trek. Never seen X-Files. Never seen an episode of Doctor Who. I might do that, Jonathan. I'd talk to my web guy first. I want somebody closer to me, though. That's what I'm looking for. Well, maybe not close, but you get the point. Top 3 TV shows. Hockey Night in Canada. Oh my God, I better close my window. It smells like there's a skunk outside. That would be kind of embarrassing, wouldn't it? Or it's Sasquatch, one of the two. Carbines, you're right. It's all about the Golden Girls. Rue McClanahan and B. Arthur were my dream boats growing up. Let's be honest. In that show, is there anything Rue McClanahan didn't sleep with? Why? How are you? Believe it or not, that's the first time I've ever smelled a skunk in my yard. Not surprised, but the first time. Cute little bastards. I'm going to close that window. I'm going to go for a quick bathroom break. I will be right back. Right back. Don't look at my butt crack, please. If you took a picture of it, I hope it's good. Dave's here. Dave is here. Yeah, I love Thomas. I gave you a big plug on that. Everybody should go watch your episode on that. I'm not sure if you heard it or not, but I thought you did very well with that conversation tonight. I wish I had a little bit more time to get into it, but very well done. Very well done tonight, buddy. And let me just load this up here. Hey, YJ, could you message me as a reminder? I want to talk with you about something regarding SOR. It's all good stuff. And send me your phone number. I'll try and give you a call tomorrow if that's cool. Yeah, I'm going to grab the link to Thomas's show because you guys should, if you get some free time, watch this one. This was a good episode. Where is it here, buddy? This is it right here. This is the link right here for Thomas's show earlier tonight. I think over the next little bit here, over the next few weeks, we may be changing up our format a little bit. And I'm going to be curious to see some of your ideas on what you guys think. We're probably going to be adding a little bit more programming during the day. And I'm going to be busier than hell with that. But I'm going to be, I'm just working on some things. What do you guys want to see on the show? Yeah, and for everybody listening or who's, I've seen a couple people already say they're going to hit subscribe on Thomas's channel. That's a good call. Very good call. Do yourself a favor. He is on right before us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. He takes Thursdays off. But definitely worth listening to. Always good information there. And he's always on right before us. And the one thing I love about Thomas is he has enough respect for SOR where he never runs into our time. So he knows that we got a bunch of mutual listeners that love listening to him and love listening to us. And he's always off air right when we're about to come on air. So you could go straight from Thomas's show straight to ours. And it's a good 1-2 punch. Really is a good 1-2 punch for your evenings. And Thomas is more newsworthy than we are. Andrew Fricker taking his grandson to Guns N' Roses. That is high quality grandparenting right there, my friend. High quality grandparenting. But getting back to it, Thomas puts on a hell of a show, guys, and it's very newsworthy and very up to date. A lot of homework done. Thomas is very connected, and if you're a supporter of ours, I can guarantee you should be a supporter of Thomas's as well. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on his channel as well, and gives you 5 hours of high quality knowledge on what we're talking about on a nightly basis. I'm more woo, he's more facts, but I think it's a good mix for your listening pleasures. And like I said, you get that 4 times a week where we go back. Where we go back to back. The only night we don't is Thursdays, which I got to convince Thomas to do Thursdays too. I do. Because Thursdays are in radio land and viewership land. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays are usually the biggest audiences. So I think Thomas should take a Monday or Friday off if he needs to take a day off. But that's just me. I'll talk to him about it. And I guess I am talking to you about it, Thomas, because I know you're listening. You know? And the people Thomas has on, they're smart people too. Tim Senor, Scowling Greg O'Brien, Tom King. Very, very smart people. Very smart people. Very knowledgeable. You'll really like that if you haven't watched them already. By the way, since Thomas has showed up in the chat room tonight, he will be signing autographs to the left of the studio when I'm done, to the left of the studio. So make sure you line up. Do not make eye contact. He doesn't like it. All right. But if you want to, you can kiss the back of his hand. If you do, he'll sign in gold Sharpie. Seeing if there's anything happening in Africa right now. Oh, the hippos are out. The hippos are out on Oliphant's River. There they are. Look at those nasty killer bastards. You know how they feed their youngsters? True story. They feed their youngsters by shitting in the water, and the nutrients from their poop, the baby hippos eat in order to grow. It's true. They are cranky sons of bitches, too. Get out of my water! Otherwise, I'll kill you. Yes, they do kill more people around every year than sharks do. Just take a look at that. Would you look at that? Exactly, Super Duke. Shit-eating river monsters. Evan, I was actually watching a special on, let's see, do baby hippos eat poop? Many baby mammal animals, including elephants and hippocamps, eat feces from their mothers or fellow herd members when they are transitioning from drinking their mother's milk to eating solid foods. That's according to livescience.com. Hey, Steam Train Mark, I'm alive later today. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. I was wondering. I think in my next lifetime, I'd actually like to be a hippopotamus because you can kill anything that you want. Nobody hunts you. And you literally spend your life lazy in water. That's a pretty good life. Yeah, Thomas, let's look at setting that up. I don't quite know how to do that. That there. That's right, Kawhi. You never heard of a dog man trying to eat a hippo. No. No. Hippos are off limits, man. Off limits. How many of you out there have an RV trailer? Anybody? Been debating whether or not to get one. I just want to get out and do some camping. You know, if you're out looking for Sasquatch or something, or just to take the boy out on some camping weekends. Is that a bird or something on his shoulder? Yeah, that's a bird. How annoying. Yeah, I'll just stick my face on the sand here and stare at the water for the next 20 minutes. Got nothing better to do. Oh, oh, who farted? Who farted? Oh, that's just rancid. I'm out of here. Was that me? Was that me? I can't handle that smell. I'm getting in the fucking water. Oh, that's just terrible. Had to be one of you YouTube bastards. That's in the future. I'm going to be getting. That's in my 5-year plan. After 5 years, I want to switch over to a motorhome. Why, Jay? I messaged you back. Hold on here. Let me put that up here. YouTube Studio, and then settings, and then community. There they go. Move that over. And then community. Live redirects. Oh, right there. Okay. Yeah, I got that, Thomas. That's simple enough. Let me just get your channel in here. Is that it? It's not letting me save it. Who can redirect my channel? I did post your. I did, but it's not allowing me to save it. So if I close it, it's going to be gone. Community. Allow other creators. Your content can only be selected for a live redirect if it's coming up. Okay, add a user. So let's see. Why did not allow me to? There we go. Got it. Okay, Thomas, let's try that out. I've got it hooked up, man. Thank you for that. Oh, there they are. Look at that. Would you look at that? Look at these porno sites here. Oh, I didn't want to pin that. Why did I pin it? That's idiotic. I had to hit report. 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 And report. Third one. Don't know if this report thing actually does anything, but I always like to report them. I accidentally did. I took it down, though. All right. Let's see if we got any other animals. Let's go to Tembe here. See what's happening at Tembe. What we got over there? Drinking in the water. One solo guy here. This is where we need the lions to come on in and rip that sucker apart. You should never be alone in the forest with lions. Yeah, he's even leaving the screen there. Nothing happening there. Let's see what's happening at Kalahari. What do we got here? There's nothing ever happening here. This channel's so boring. All right, let's go to Tembe. No, nothing. Let's go to Okakuwejo. Are those zebras? Holy cow. What the hell are those? Those are zebras. Holy cow. Look at them all. And they're still coming in there, way back here. Here, I'll zoom in on that for you. Look how cool that looks. One wandering in from way over here. Bunch here. There's one little guy there. What's the temperature there? Oh, this one doesn't give the temperature. That's too bad. Cybermind Arcade, one random guy. How you guys doing? I guess we should prepare for more Mandela effects now that the CERN collider is going again. Oh, that's one wildebeest there. That looks like a wildebeest right there. Very cool. Very, very cool. Oh, which reminds me, because I am going to have to save this. Where the hell did I put them? Oh, this ain't good. Thought I had them in here. See, I hate it when I put shit away. Never see it again. When I clean the office, I seem to have misplaced my USB my two USBs that I use for conferences. So they gotta be over here somewhere. I usually kept them in a cup, but it doesn't look like they're in the cup where I thought they were. This really sucks. Really sucks. What the hell could it be? There. This is not good. This is just not good. Excuse me. There. Well, they wouldn't be in that bucket. Fuck are they? Excuse me. Not there. Not there. Definitely not there. I'm at a loss. I am at a loss. Well, son of a bitch. This is going to stress me out. It's going to stress me out big time because, like, I have two of them that I use for conferences, and I don't know where they are. Shit. All right, everyone. It is that time of the night where I got to say goodbye because some of us have to work in the morning, and that would be me. I want to say a big thank you to Thomas, Ken, Phil, Vaughn, YJ, Steven, Patrick, and Sally for the amazing super chats tonight. Very much appreciate your love and support. Tomorrow night on the show, I believe it's Geraldine Orozco and the Spiritual You, and it's going to be a lot of fun with Geraldine tomorrow night, as it always is, and hopefully she's feeling well. But at this point, I'm going to say sayonara. I'm heading on out. You guys have a wonderful night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Thank you for your support.
healthy, my friend.
You too.
You need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.